Hello everyone and welcome to episode 15 of the Juggernaut Bolt Action Podcast. I'm here with the Tofalo.
Hello.
Playboy Pete.
Hello.
And the Flakinator Sheffield.
Hello.
Welcome back everyone. Obviously it's been Christmas and New Year since then, so Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. That's enough of that bullshit. Let's talk Bolt Action.
I've got such a hangover though. Not from drinking, from just like pork pies, man. And like Stilton and sausage rolls. It's so much Christmas.
So you've not got a hangover, you've got an overhang.
I mean, I always had an overhang.
Yeah, Toph hasn't been able to see himself for the last, 6 years.
He only knows it's there because all the other boys tell him. Anyway, how are we, gentlemen? Did we get any toys and presents for Christmas?
No, I never get any toys or presents for Christmas. I get clothes, which is fantastic.
Clothes. Not for a Bolt Action podcast.
That's like me.
But,
I had a very dad Christmas. I got loads of clothes and I got a tool set, which is good because I needed a new one. And then halfway through, like maybe 10 in the morning, I was like, oh, I'm bored now. And then Kat's like, yeah, maybe I should have got you a toy. I'm like, yeah, you should have. Yeah.
I got violently ill. Genuinely, the Christmas day, from about 4 o'clock, I was just throwing up until about midnight, and then I slept all Boxing Day, so my Christmas was rubbish.
That's what you deserve for flaking, Sheffy.
Yeah, I think you might have poisoned my pork or something.
But I certainly did.
Yeah, like you, Toph, I mainly got dad stuff. I got a new cafetiere and some luxury coffee beans, and then like loads of nerdy job related stuff.
So even your Christmas is pretentious.
Yeah, of course it is.
Dan, I hope Santa brought you loads of Bolt Action to make up for the rest of us boring sods.
I mean, no, I got pants and socks and then just money for a holiday. Although saying that though, we are doing a disservice to Juggernaut DJ, who did go around the whole club and put us all to shame and bought everyone a gift. A lot of it was GW related, but I think one or two got some Bolt Action maybe. So thank you, DJ.
Thank you, DJ.
No, why are we thanking DJ? DJ, if you're listening, you work for the military, which means our taxes pay your wages, which means all you're doing is giving us a rebate, giving us gifts, and that does not count.
You're not back for more than 2 minutes, and it was already being pretentious.
No, we were really appreciative. Thank you very much, DJ. We love you.
I hope everyone liked the Christmas special. My apologies. It's a bit shit, weren't it? It's almost like we was all struggling at last minute to get it to work because we had to delay by 3 flakes, and then I had to edit it in one night to get it out in time, and it was a bit awful. So Sheffield, please apologise to the dear listener for having to go through that atrocious Christmas special.
Okay, dear listeners, I'm very sorry that I was not there to carry these 3 pathetic idiots who can't string together a sentence without me, who can't put together a simple, coherent podcast outline, these talentless hacks who together could barely put 4 GCSEs on a bit of paper, whose degrees are worth nothing, and basically they're useless without me. But I'm back, and I'm here, and I'm amazing, so you can all love me. Is that a suitable apology?
Yeah, that's fine. I'll take that. That's fine.
Sure.
That's the way football managers apologise, isn't it?
We'll just edit out all the self-aggrandising bullshit at the end of this apology.
If we edited out all the self-aggrandising bullshit, we wouldn't have a podcast left.
No,
we would. It'd just be dead air, wouldn't it?
In all seriousness, I'm very sorry. I had to flake because the family is still not very well, and then I had to flake because I double booked myself with something, and then in the end I just did it anyway, and I was useless and terrible. So no, there's no good reason.
Just double booked himself with his bloody Christmas prawn.
Yeah. Right. So we got loads to do. Final bits of the intro. Ooh! It's after Christmas now. We're 2 months out from our doubles event, our finest hour. So why ain't you gonna brought a fucking ticket yet? Go buy a ticket. You've done Christmas now. You've got all you spent your money. Get paid again. Go buy a ticket. Get your shit together.
That £10 you got from your aunties, use it to buy a ticket.
And yeah, as Pete says, you don't need a buddy. We've had a bit of confusion. We've had to answer that. You do not need a buddy to come to our doubles tournament because each round you'll be paired up with a randomer. And that's part of the fun. So even if you're Billy no mates and have no friends and everyone hates you, come to our finest hour and you'll get a friend. And if you're really unlikable, you get a new one each round. so it's fine.
And if you're wondering how in the hell does that score, trust me, it scores somehow.
Yeah, we'll leave that to Pete. Don't worry about it. It'll be good times.
Somebody will win something.
If you're looking for other tournaments to go to, Beginning of the End. That's the one Gaz is running at Imps in Lincoln.
That's the one.
That's the one.
March 9th,
I'm so
isn't
excited.
It's March the 9th? Yeah, that's still got tickets left as far as I'm aware. Go there.
I know. I'm really hoping the football gets rearranged so I can get there.
How long do you know, Pete?
Probably no February.
Ooh, okay. And I guess really far out, we're starting to look into not 2 steps back. That will be in summer this year. But we haven't finalised a date yet to that. But keep an eye out on the interwebs.
Got to be careful around that name though, lads, because it could get ridiculous down the line. Not 30 steps back is a bit much.
I mean, what's wrong
No,
with that?
once you get to 3, it'll be like you just start rearranging it. So you follow the Fast and Furious. So you get Fast and Furious, and then you get like Furious and Fast and the fastest. So basically, we'll be doing that. It'll be like called Step Backathon. So you just sort of muck about with it that way.
Not 1 step back, Hiroshima bombing.
Is that the Tokyo Drift one?
Yeah.
Right. Come on then, let's do a bolt action podcast.
Bolt action.
Bolt action. Guys, I've got some bad news in the What the Fact section. What the fuck?
What the fuck?
Turns out a bunch of Australians down under have declared war on us.
What the fuck?
That's all right. God's declared war on them at the moment.
The gentleman of the Bacon Burgers podcast, if you listen to their last episode, went on a 20-minute tirade about how awesome we are. Now I reckon they must be talking some bullshit, so I reckon it's cyber warfare. It is the only way.
I thought they were hitting on us.
No, we're not popular. It's got to be something. It's got to be like some weird like Russian interference.
If we've got to fight back, I suggest we unleash the emus.
We don't have any emus.
Yeah, but Australia's still got emus.
How are we going to get them?
Does it really at the moment? I imagine it has quite a lot of emu skeletons. Lots of barbecued emu.
So we've had loads of messages from Tristan and Rubes. I think they finally discovered our way of life, let's say, in regards to bolt action. And I think Australians going a little bit jugger recently. I think they're kind of turning up the temperature. So then they've just discovered us, which is perfect timing, because they've got...
Does that mean they're giving everybody the jugger hugs?
They must be just... As long as they start taking pictures of each other's crotches by gaming tables,
Yeah.
that's how you know whether you're a jugger or not. But CanCon, their really big convention event...
Oh, that's massive, yeah.
That's the end of this month, and apparently there's a fair few positively strong lists that are going to go, which is quite different, because only if you know, last year in episodes was talking about how soft it is in Australia, so I don't know what's caused that, but
they stepped up, obviously.
Yeah, but Rube said,
talking smack.
One of the hosts, Rube said, if we ever go to Australia, they're gonna fucking have us, because we're gonna have to battle them in a bolt action battle.
It's a good job all of us are too poor to get there.
Yeah, it's really expensive to buy those anti-gravity boots to like keep you on the bottom of the planet.
I imagine it like, you know, Pete, you know this. You know, like when before I had like a wife and kids, and I used to have like a fun life, and I could do things I wanted. I would go on 48-hour Civilization LAN parties.
Oh mate, it weren't 48 hour. I'm pretty sure we lost a week to one of those.
Well, but then you know when you like you've leveled up your technology and you've barely discovered triremes. And then, and then Juggernaut Grimes calls me a stupid name. So then I declare war on him in like the year 3000 BC. But he's in Australia and I'm in the UK. You can't actually do anything. You can't actually touch each other. It's just like.
And what you actually both end up doing is trying to bribe me to fight one or the other, and I just sit there taking all the bribes because I'm a grade A dick.
So basically, America, you're in the middle of the Australia versus UK fight. Come join Team Juggernaut. We have colossal wars.
Hang on. That's if you go around that way. If you go around the other way, it's Russia. Do we really want to...
Nah. No. Do we have any Russian listeners?
I don't know. Do we have a Chinese listener?
Not after we did our Soviet review.
Not anymore.
Can I just call out the bacon burgers, because they keep referring to us as Toph and the guys. We're either the Juggernauts or we all have names, you fucking dickheads.
Yeah, you've got Dan.
Yeah, there's Dan, Pete, Sheffy, and some cunt.
Yeah, you know it's me.
El Diablo.
I'm the brains of this organisation. Yeah, I'll tell you what I hate though. You know when people say, "Oh,
certainly not the beauty of it."
I hate it when people say the Juggernauts of Bolt Action. That annoys me. No,
I mean, we are the Juggernauts of Bolt Action.
No, we're just the Juggernauts, man. Why are we adding the of Bolt Action?
No, because we are Juggernauts of.
Yeah, no, the podcast's called Juggernaut Bolt Action. There is no of.
Well.
It's like an X-Men. We're the Juggernauts, bitch.
But yeah, good. Thank you, Baconbergs, for the kind shout out. Tristan, you'll be coming up in summer. It'll be good to see you because he's going to come roll some dice with us. And
is that Tristan James?
Yes.
So Tristan, I received a friend request from you on Facebook the other day, but then you followed that up by tagging me in pictures of boxes. So I'm not accepting your friend request. You should learn your lesson. You're lucky I don't block you.
I must say, the amount of boxes that Sheffy has been tagged in this Christmas has been a thing of beauty.
I got a brief reprieve on Christmas Day, in fairness. But apart from that...
That's because everyone was fucking arguing about Tiger Fear on Christmas Day. Did you guys see that bloody Facebook argument? Yeah. My phone was buzzing all day on Christmas.
Somebody was arguing around our pack not discounting a P4 because of Tiger Fear.
Oh, fuck off! Who cares? It's Christmas Day.
Increasingly, Facebook, the Bolt Action Facebook group talking about Tiger Fear is a bit like a car being on fire in a really rough neighbourhood. No one really wants to go and do anything about it, but everybody just sort of watches from a distance. It's a little bit like that.
Hey, look here, rich boy. I live Braunston adjacent. Leave it alone.
All I'll say is if you do like Tiger Fear and you don't like our rules, then don't fucking play our rules.
Yeah, it's weird that people have the option to do that, isn't it?
Yeah, we just got set up. It was just so someone had said, "Oh, how do people feel about Tiger Fear? Do TOs do anything to balance it?" And a bunch of people went, "Oh yeah, the Juggernauts do this." And then suddenly it just became a bunch of people saying, "Oh, the Juggernauts can't do that. That's messing about with the official rules." It's like, well, don't play them. It just didn't seem to get the idea. Like someone had asked a genuine question about how you resolve the issue of Tiger Fear, and if the answer is, well, we don't. We think it's fine the way it is. Fine, good for you. But don't make it as if we're saying, oh, it's rubbish, something desperately needs to be done. No, we just thought we'd change it to make it a bit more interesting, to give you a different advantage. But people don't seem to be able to look past that.
Man,
our change is mainly based around... Our change is mainly based around not having to roll dice every time you want to do something and slowing the game down.
Yeah. The thing that annoyed me most about that post was the guy started out with... people comp Tiger Fear and this is why you should never do it, and then about 50 comments in, unprovoked, he just went, but if anyone's interested, this is how I would change Tiger Fear. And it's like, well, you can't have your cake and eat it, mate. Choose one thing or the other and shut the fuck up.
I had cake and I ate it at Christmas. It was gorgeous.
Yeah, of course you did.
Anyway, speaking of people giving us feedback,
yes, we got some amazing feedback from a guy called John. And I'm saying he's called John, but we didn't know that initially. He just started giving us loads of feedback. And he has an Asian name, so I just called him That Asian Guy. And it seems to have stuck. So, That Asian Guy. John, thank you very much for your feedback.
It's not just a name. Like, his Facebook names is all in like Chinese characters. And I'm sorry that Asian guy, but your profile pic looks like you're in one of those Korean boy bands. So how am I supposed to know?
It does, sort of a vaguely video game character. Yeah, it's a bit weird.
just casually comment on his appearance.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's him. I mean, he's got pretty good taste. He talks a lot about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. This is a bit weird and a bit niche, but respect. I like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
I mean, we did admit...
fair, That Asian Guy is now a title.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I should actually say what his feedback was. So he was just really supportive. He's a TO. Is he in New Zealand? No, that's not right. Where is he?
He's in America.
He's in the States. He's a foreigner. It's all the same.
Wow. Are you calling him a dirty colonial?
No, because I don't think he's from like English colonial America. Anyway, this is besides the point. He's a TO, and he sent us lots of really good feedback and asked us lots of questions about the pack. Actually, in fairness to him, clearly he'd read it and looked at it and thought about it properly, which makes a really nice change, because he asked us some questions where we genuinely had to think, what would we do about that? And he wasn't finding holes or anything. He just had loads of really good questions and lots of good ideas. And he ran an event using our pack and gave us some feedback on how it went. And so actually, really big shout out to you. If you do use our pack, even if you're just using it at home or in your club to play some friends, it'd be nice to hear what you think of it, even if you think it's rubbish. So shout out to that Asian guy for taking the time to give us some direct feedback on the stuff that we've done. But if you're out there and you're using our pack, or you've had a go, even if it's just one game, and you want to take the time to tell us what you thought about it, by all means do. We'll definitely read and respond to it, even if your feedback's terrible.
Wow.
So he had some quite specific comments I promised I would answer on the podcast. First one, Axis support. So I think that's for the Bulgarians, isn't it, where they get to pick?
No, it's Hungary and Romania, isn't it?
Okay, yeah. We were wondering, whereas in
Bulgaria get it too, you're right.
Well, in regular bolt action, they get the Hitler's Buzzsaw / Tiger Fear rule applied to the first tank that was purchased. They're asking, would they get the German discount, i.e. the Panther being 75 points less? And to be honest, that's not something I've really thought about.
That's a hard one.
TO discretion? I guess you can go either way with that.
I can't see why you wouldn't. I mean, you don't get a huge choice of vehicles. You basically get to choose from the German vehicles up to a certain point. And the Hungarians, I think, and the Romanians only had like a couple of Panthers delivered to them. So if you're trying to get a Panther in, you're doing it for a very specific reason. I'm not sure it necessarily feels right. But like, it's kind of the only big tank you can take that's eligible for that 75 point is the Panther. It's not like you can take a Tiger or a Tiger 2. It's just one tank, because everything else you can take is smaller, like Panzer IVs and things, which they were more plentifully supplied with. So I don't know. I'm inclined to say,
is it really just the Panther?
Well, the Panther is the biggest thing you can take. I think.
I'd say go for it then.
I'd stand corrected on this. I think the Panther is the biggest vehicle you can take under that rule, and the Germany only supplied like 5 or 6 of them to each nation, I think. Citation needed. And so if you really are trying to cram it in because you want a Panther, then actually because you don't have access to anything else, just take a Panzer IV and be done with it.
Okay. Next question. This is gonna make Pete happy. This is, considering that the Chinese already had a nerf to Sparrow tactics and now must pay selector points for their forward deploying guerrilla squads, would it be unreasonable to lower the squad minimum fee for the free LMG to 8 or 9? That will add another bonus to being maxed out.
No, it wouldn't be. It'd be completely unreasonable.
Agree.
I agree. Yeah.
You're already forward deploying. Get a grip.
Yeah.
Preach, Pete.
Yeah. And if the bonus of being full strength is also free rerolls. So there you go.
Yeah. Also, just while we're on this point, I know that this wasn't raised by the Asian guy. This was raised by somebody else. If you have a squad that can be up to 12 men, but doesn't have LMGs as an option, under Juggernaut Selector, if you don't have one as an option, you don't get one free, because it wasn't an option to you. Stop trying to wangle even more free LMGs into places that don't belong.
And you don't get free bars, get a grip.
Yeah, if you're one of the Polish or American players, I don't get free shit, that's not fair. Mate, you can still min-max like you did last week. That's your benefit. You don't have to take the full strength squads.
If you play American and you're complaining about the cost of bars, then you are not playing your army properly. You should get rid of it and play a different army that you learn to play properly, because it's unacceptable to complain about American stuff.
Sheffy's on fire today.
No, bars are amazing. I mean, go back and listen to the podcast where we talk about them.
Guerrilla squads were always good, even without Sparrow tactics. So, no. Deal with it.
The strength of guerrilla squads, the strength of native and regulars are being that far forward. Having an entire army that far forward is a bit strong, which is why the pack pushes you to only have 1 or 2. It's still strong to have that 1 or 2. And
Sparrow tactics was downright broken before it was FAQ'd anyway, so be considered that you're now just like everyone else. Here we go. I love this one. We get loads of these ones. Why aren't Panzer IVs cheaper? Because they lost Tiger Fear.
Specifically Panzer IV Hs.
Because I'll do it. A T-34-85 is identical to a Panzer IV, and if you take Tiger Fear away from the Panzer IV, they're identical tanks. So why would it be fair to give the Germans a cheaper one and not the Russians?
Same with a Sherman 76mm.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, that 9+ tank with a heavy or super heavy AT gun. I think it's heavy, isn't it? A 9+ tank with a heavy AT gun. That is the yardstick by which all other tanks are measured in terms of how they deviate from that, whether they're more armoured or less armoured, or their gun is better or worse. So if you start messing about with that, you're messing about with everything else, and you're suddenly giving the Germans an advantage that other players don't have.
I mean, the whole point is we wanted to get the German big cats out, and we thought that we saw too many Panzer IVs. Why would we want to make it so you still see more Panzer IVs? If you're still trying to use spam Panzer IVs, you're doing it wrong. Like, the Panzer IV's a good tank. It doesn't need Tiger Fear. It's a good gun on a good body. You know, there's a reason Soviet players still bring out the T-34-85. It's a good tank. Stop whinging.
Yeah, exactly. It's perfectly fine, but it's boring at tournaments when it's the only German tank you ever see. Oh, sorry, there isn't a Flam Panzer.
And if your main whinge is because you've lost the rulebook used Tiger Fear, then you're relying on that rule too much.
Can you hear that? It's the sound of tiny violins. That's how much we care about you, Panzer IV moaners.
And finally, a US player wondered if you guys would fix the US airstrike rule. 2 airstrikes, but the potential of still getting the rookie pilot blows.
I've got a fix.
I've got a fix for this as well. Go on, you first, Pete.
I think you've got the same fix, Dan. Go on.
Just don't take them.
Bingo.
Don't take one.
Yeah. We've been over this before. If you're playing Americans, your national rules are fine without the free unit. You have arguably the best national rules in the game. Get over yourself.
A lot of the feedback we get kind of is like, oh, can't you fix this thing, and can't you fix this thing, and can't you fix this thing? And now we acknowledge that MMGs need fixing, and that's what we're looking at, but we're not going to go into every single army and fix every little thing that's wrong, because we'd be here forever, and you wouldn't be playing bolt action anymore. Like, the whole point of our pack was just a few changes, just to change up how you build your list. And I think we've already gone pretty damn heavy in that direction. Yeah. So
you've got to consider these sweeping changes to make the game more streamlined, rather than just releasing our own errata and FAQ, essentially.
If we start going into individual rules like that, and all the US player, now their airstrike works this way, then we've got to go to the Hungarians. They go, what about my stupid, I only get fanatics on officers.
Yeah.
And then we just keep going and going.
It's also, we were very clear. The Juggernaut selector and the Juggernaut pack is something that's designed for streamlining and standardizing some aspects of competitive play. Like, if you want to fix all of the little individual things, then you're looking for the Juggernaut pack to fix something that it was never designed to fix. So don't bother.
Also, change what you want. It's not like you don't have to. Like, obviously, we've play tested it to the way we like it to be. But if you want to run an event and go, oh, actually, we want it to be this rule, do what you got to do. As long as you give me all of the credit. You know, unless you do something bad. If you do something bad, I don't want any credit. If you fuck up my pack, I don't want any credit.
Give Sheffield credit if you do bad.
Sheffield. But if you do something good, then yeah, give me credit.
A bit like Andy Murray. When he wins, he's British. When he loses, he's Scottish.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's entirely it. Yeah. But it's not just been that Asian guy who sent us loads of feedback. It's been loads of people. But thank you to everyone who has sent some back, good or bad.
Oh yeah, and then there was that other Asian guy.
No. And just from the conversation that asked, I think it was this week, that I think Toast already answered, and he'll probably have to update in the pack anyway. For Italians, in your format, would they be allowed to use their alternative rules found in Western Desert?
Yes.
Well, they're for different selectors, so yeah. It's sort of, I mean, I'd class it the same as saying British can either pick the Western Desert rules or their own army book rules. But I guess I can put it in just for clarification's sake. I mean, hopefully after our finest hour, I'll do a new version, because hopefully we've got a fix for MMGs out by then. So watch the space in terms of new pack versions.
Yeah, a fix. Okay, so we got an email that I'm just going to read out almost word by word because. Why not? So here we go, guys. You ready for this? Please, oh pretty please, have all the juggers tell us about what each of their favourite support units are for bolt action, and tactics they like to use on the tabletop with those favourite support weapons. Also, how would you guys go about experimenting with fixes to machine guns? Well, we're experimenting with it now.
We basically just argue at work. Like, when we should be working, we just all get on the WhatsApp chat and say about what we think the problem is. Don't actually pick any dice up. Don't actually do anything, and just argue.
Isn't that what the British do best, though?
I mean, that is exactly what we do. And then by the time Club Night Tuesday comes around, we've argued to the point of we go, fuck it, we'll just do it that way. And then we play that game, and then the next week we just argue again.
My favourite support unit is the mortar. So it depends on what are we defining by support units. If you buy a support unit box from Warlord, that's basically got MMG teams, mortar teams, that sort of thing in it.
Any weapon team normally, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I like mortars. I think you can justify any of the different levels of mortar. Medium mortars are good, heavy mortars are good, light mortars are good. Some selectors make them better than others, and some selectors make them worse than others. But it's very rare that I write off the mortar as an option. I think if I had to choose, I'd say the medium mortar is my favourite of the mortars. But that's definitely my favourite.
Flamethrowers, they're terrifying.
They're not my favourite because I hate them because they roll ones too much and run out of ammunition.
They're my favourite. They either work or they don't. It's brilliant. It's like playing an orc.
Yeah, but we're not playing best. We're playing favourite, and my favourite is the mortar.
Yeah, it is my favourite.
My favourite thematically is probably the sniper.
Oh, you stole mine.
For World War II, you can't get over the image of a guy in a bell tower picking off the important enemy targets or crawling along his belly through the mountains and sniping a general in the face. It's a shame they're just not as good as they could be in the game.
Are you seriously complaining that snipers aren't
What
good?
are you talking about, Dan? Snipers
You
are
are
brilliant.
talking out of your butt.
Compared to like being in, like when you see them in the films, they're in the bell tower and it's like bang, 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 and just
You've
people
seen Saving
fall
Private
and just
Ryan,
everyone
right?
is yeah.
Where the guy gets nailed by a tank in the bell tower.
Just play Russians and buy
Take
Vasily.
Vasily.
Yeah, and then you get that exact feeling.
It's rare that we catch you like live on recording talking out your ass, and I'm really pleased that we've done it today. Dan saying snipers aren't very good.
No, snipers are good. They're just not as good as you want them to be, like in the films.
Haven't you used the White Death from your Fin list yet before?
Yeah.
Like,
He's
how he
alright.
sounds even disappointed with using the White Death. Like, how good do you want the snipers to be? Just like, I hit on twos, and then your entire unit's destroyed at the end.
Yeah,
No.
Dan
It's on twos with
secretly wishes.
rerolls.
He rerolls his wounds. Yeah.
Yeah, Dan secretly wishes that he was that all of his men were ultramarines, just walking around with bolt guns, killing everyone the other two.
Why can't I have Americans in body armor? Eh?
Well, I love snipers, and I think they're perfectly powerful as it is because it's quite rare that I'd ever take an army without one. And that's with
I
them
thought
being
you'd go for the naval observer.
Nah, I've never actually used one.
It's not a support
I'm
unit.
surprised that you didn't go for the dog mine. I'll be honest.
I was thinking dog.
Yeah, well, I'm surprised you didn't go for the bomb stick.
What about the anti-toph rifle?
No, to be fair, my close second was don't laugh, guys. The Goliath.
Yes, boy.
I mean, it's shit as all get out, and there are no tactics. The tactic is leave it in your army box, but it does look really cool.
The idea of it is awesome.
Yeah.
Gonna drive my little car over and he went boom.
In terms of how to use them, we've done a just the tip for mortars. Have we done one for flamethrowers and snipers yet?
Not
I don't
yet.
think so.
We'll get to it. We'll
Snipers
do
is
it
fairly
some point.
self-explanatory. Find a small team that has team weapon rule, shoot it, kill it.
Yeah, I was going to say just the tip for snipers is just a list of target priority things, basically, isn't it? So HQ
Essentially,
units, small teams, and then you rank the small teams. I think it's pretty obvious with snipers.
Top of the list is free observers, then
Yeah.
HQ flamethrowers,
Yeah.
etc., etc.
Just the tip for flamethrowers could be interesting because there's lots of different ways you can use them. You can use them really aggressively, or you can use them as amazing denial units. So maybe we will do that in the future.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an infinite amount of time in the universe, so
But not an infinite amount of time in your bacon-filled diet lifestyle.
now we're in 2020. Is this going to be the decade I die? it's a bit dark, isn't it?
Yeah, I heard
Well, at
someone
least we
talk.
have 2020 vision.
I heard someone refer to like January and October, the parts of the year where traditionally in sort of Western countries you do loads of like giving up alcohol, giving up smoking, New Year's resolutions. I heard someone refer to that as White Ramadan.
Isn't that also Lent?
No, I thought that was brilliant.
So finally, I don't know if you'd call it feedback, but you know, I guess it was a nice surprise. We had a visitor at club just a couple of weeks before Christmas. Turns out Mr. John Russell of Warlord fame. I think is he the events manager for the States? Is that right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
he was over visiting his head office, probably getting his PMD, all that shit. Get sorted, guys. And because we're quite local, him and Simon Tiff, the community manager, came over and visited club just to see how we did things. And
I think he was at a loose end for a final
being
night.
a dick.
Yeah, they came round and they just went, "Is this fucking it? What the fuck is this?" And we was like, "Yeah," and it's like, "You disgust me."
Yeah, we bought them pizza, and it was some of the worst weather that we'd had in ages. So it absolutely tipped it down all the way from Nottingham. They got to the car park after they initially couldn't find it, arrived soaking wet. We hadn't put the red carpet out for them, and the pizza was late. So it was well funny. They turned up just wet and in an absolutely foul mood.
And Simon called me out for my bullshit. Because he
which bullshit? Because you have a lot of bullshit.
A lot of bullshit.
Mate, there's a steaming pile of it over there.
You remember? You remember last episode where a bit tongue in cheek, I moaned about how he gave us the prizes and then called us out like he didn't want to give us the prizes.
Oh yeah.
And then he basically just went, "What the fuck are you on about, Tove? Like, it's a joke. Stop being a little bitch." And I'm like, yeah. I mean, he probably didn't say it in those words, because Warlord actually have some standards.
I was there.
You know what? Yeah.
That was the moment he grabbed you by the collar and absolutely smashed you in the face.
I apologise, Warlord. Turns out I am a very delicate little flower who does sometimes act like a little bitch.
Translates to, yes, he is a little bitch.
It's not right, but it's okay.
You're like the vegan of the podcast.
The vegan of the...
Mate, I'm the fattest member of this podcast. How can I be the vegan?
That's a dedicated fucking vegan, I tell you.
Well, now that there's
All
like
those Brussels
vegan,
sprouts.
now there's vegan KFC and vegan McDonald's meals.
Atrocities.
And stuff.
Did you see?
Atrocities.
Wait,
Yeah.
vegan KFC.
Vegan KFC.
Yeah, didn't you see they've released them in January? It is now official that both KFC and McDonald's both do vegan-only options. You can buy a meal from both that is entirely vegan. So it's like the herbs and spices of the KFC chicken surrounding something that's not chicken.
I can also go on a night out in Leicester and pick up some proper munter from Lamplighters. It doesn't mean you should.
I mean, those
proper Monty.
vegan KFC is the worst thing to happen to the world since like the BP oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. That is an atrocity beyond measure.
Hey Dan, I can hear. Yeah, that's right. Greta Thunberg is judging you right now.
I don't care. I like chicken.
I'm sure she's not a listener to this podcast. Who knows? If you are, give us some feedback.
She's far too liberal and caring of the planet to listen to this, isn't she?
Definitely too good for us. for our scummery. Right, come on then. Shall we, speaking of scummery, shall we do some tippage? Just the tippage?
Ooh, always give me
Just the tip.
Tippage.
Okay, guys, so for this week's Just the Tip, or what Toph likes to call Anniversary Night, we're going to be discussing List Building 101. So we get a hell of a lot of messages along the lines of, can you review this list for me and tell me where you'd improve it, or can you design me a list for X, Y, or Z army? Now, obviously, we're not going to do that for you. We're not a list building service, unless you want to start paying us a commission, in which case we'll design all the lists for you. But what we're going to do is we're going to cover a few little bullet points or headers that you just need to bear in mind when you're designing your list. And obviously, the guys will chime in with their opinions as and when they feel the need to. So the first thing we're going to discuss is probably the most important, really, is what type of game are you playing?
What time? We're playing Bolt Action. That's the game we're playing. Bolt Action.
Yeah, well, what type of game are you playing? So, are you going to a competitive event? Are you having a competitive practice game down the club? Are you at a campaign day? Are you just at a pick-up, chill-out, fuck-around game with your friends? That will determine quite a lot of what your list should be. Obviously, if you're going to a competitive event, you don't want to rock the triple tiger list at 12.50 because it's a load of bullshit. If you're playing a pickup game with your mates, you probably don't want to bring your Maori Gurkha LRDG Naval Observer spam because that would be a real dick move. So the kind of games that you can play are obviously competitive, campaign, pickup, mess around, and like we did the other week when we put it all over Facebook, we had I think it was about a 5,000 point aside tank war game. that's where your initial feelings should be, if you will.
I guess it's also like know the rules. So if you are going to a campaign or you are going to a tournament, what house rules do they have? Because that'll also have a big impact of what you're doing. Because even if you don't necessarily know what type of game it is, so if you're going to a tournament but you don't know how hardcore it's going to be, have a look at what sort of restrictions they have, because that might give you a indication of what to expect, and you can build around that. And then if you keep that in mind for every other thing we go through, if it says no tanks, well then you just know, don't even look at them, just keep them out of your mind.
Yeah, and then but by extension of that as well, if you know what isn't going to be taken to a tournament or an event or a specific game, you know exactly what not to take yourself. If no one's taking tanks, you don't need to take 3 dogmine teams, because
don't need to take any Panzerfausts.
Yeah, because it'll all be irrelevant. So the next thing you need to consider is what mission you're going to be playing. Now, obviously, if you're going to a tournament, for example, if you're coming to the doubles tournament we're running in February, or not 2 steps back in the summertime, we'll have the Jugger pack, so you'll have 6 missions set out. If you go to the GT, for example, it can be any of the 12 from the rulebook.
And a bunch of others.
Yeah. It'll be turn up and design your own mission on the day. If you're playing a campaign day, you'll most likely have missions set out for you by the TO, like Gaz does at his events. So playing to the mission is huge, and it can massively influence the way you're going to build your list. If you know you're going to be playing a load of objective grabbing missions, having maxed out squads of infantry and a bunch of weapon teams to capture objectives is fantastic. If you're playing 1 or 2 games where it's kill a certain opponents like HQ or something, having loads and loads of infantry is probably not necessary. So a big tank to go and snipe him off the board is really good. So keeping the mission in mind is really important. Also building a list to all the missions possible if you don't know which specific mission you're going to be playing.
I think it's also worth having. You definitely can build a list so that you're definitely stronger and weaker at certain ones. I don't think it's possible to build a list that's equally amazing at everything. But I guess it's just taking note of what you could potentially come up against. So if you're playing in a tournament that allows manhunt, and you're only bringing a single inexperienced lieutenant without any buddies, you're setting yourself up to fail. Because if you come up to the mission and you roll defender, and then someone's got to attack you and they just have to go and kill a single inexperienced man in combat, you can't. Well, you can whinge about the mission, but you can't whinge about the result, because you had the chance to see that and you didn't do it.
Yeah. Equally, if you bring a 7 dice all veteran list to a King of the Hill capture 5 objectives mission, and you lose because you didn't have enough infantry squads, well, sucks to be you, mate, but you should have thought about that before you made your list. But equally, if you play an 8 dice all veteran list in kill points, you're going to be laughing your tits off, because there's no way that you should be losing that game ever.
I guess it's just a keep it in mind kind of thing, isn't it, really?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, some armies will cope with multiple mission styles better. So things like Americans and Russians, where you can have lots of choices, are good for that. Armies like probably Chinese, some of the minor powers on Axis and Allies side, they will struggle to do a kind of a Swiss Army knife approach, but it's just something to bear in mind. Next on the list is the opponents that you'll be playing. So they will obviously have their list. So are they aware of what kind of mission and what kind of game you're going to be playing together? Do they know it's a knock-around game or to a certain mission? And also their play style. If I was to play Pete's Japanese, for instance, I know that it's quite a very hard defensive army, and getting it out of any sort of defensive position is going to be a real pain in the arse. So if I'm bringing Americans, I'll need 53 flamethrowers to do that.
Only 53?
Only 53. But the first 52 will miss, and then the one, they'll just go around and kill everything.
1 for each bomb stick, mate.
Yeah, that's it. But then I know that if I'm playing Toph and his Polish, that's going to be aggressive as shit, and it's going to be literally his whole army will probably be in combat with me turn 2. So you need to think about those sorts of things as well.
And I know if I'm playing Sheffy, I don't even need to try.
Well, there is that as well, yeah.
I'm personally hurt by that. But then it's sort of true. I mean, all these things are broadly context things. That when you're thinking about what list you've designed, you think about the context you're going to be playing in, and one of those things is opponent. So I know that, like, if I'm playing someone who's new to bolt action, who's only played a couple of games, who's never been to a tournament, I'm not going to put 3 multi-launchers in my list. If I'm playing Dan, I might. Even if
you need all the crutches you can get, don't you?
You wouldn't put 3 in, you put 5 in.
But yeah, but the point is that things that you might think twice about taking against somebody who's new, it doesn't matter. It can be funny. It's like I would bring a Goliath team to play any of you, but I wouldn't take a stupid unit to something important. Where I wouldn't take one to, like, the World Championship or something. That'd be ridiculous.
Yeah. I also think it's worth doing if you go into an event or you go into a tournament, it's worth doing your research about the sort of people who go there. So this is different to, say, just what sort of tournament it is, because so if you take us as the Juggernauts, we're all quite aggressive players. Like, we don't fuck about, we don't sit back and shoot. Even Pete is known to charge at times. So genuinely, you know, if you're playing one of us, you know it's going to be a full-on, you know, grab your balls and jump in kind of game. So even if we're going to a campaign day and you know you're likely to see one of us there, that might influence what you want to take. And that's just using us as an example. You know, obviously everyone's got their own kind of gaming groups, and or sometimes if there's a local tournament and you know that there's 2 or 3 blokes and they always go to that tournament. If you know there's a guy who always goes and always wins, well, what does he take? Well, how does he play? And that can influence your decisions as well.
Yeah, players' lists can change, but their play styles may not. So if you've got an American player, a guy who plays Americans and Russians, and he's aggressive with both, you know exactly how he's going to play in both of those scenarios. But you probably don't want to anticipate just a randomer turn him up and hoping he plays the same way.
I think we're talking quite broadly at the moment, but the point to consider in relation to list building is all of the initial thoughts relating to building a list are not about looking at your list of available options. They're about thinking of the missions and opponents you're likely to play. Because if you don't do that first, then it doesn't matter what you've got available because you'll pick the wrong thing. So it's just worth saying that at this point, about halfway through this, just the tip, that you need to think about the context and the missions and the opponent and the meta before you even look at your army book and your available options and your selectors.
Yeah,
because otherwise you'll have made the mistake already.
You used a fantastic word then, which was context. That is the most important thing, is context and figuring it out via context.
When you do go looking at your, at least when you get round to looking at your army book for what am I going to do, go back to how do I win the missions?
Yeah.
Shall we have a side step to the words that will make everyone across the world roll their eyes? But I think it's relevant in this discussion.
Oh.
And it's the
we
one
already
that...
discussed vegans.
No. It's the one...
We're not on about vegetarians.
It's the one Sheffy discussed, which is meta. Now, this is something that a lot of people won't even admit exists, really. Meta is how you in your local area plays. Now, we discussed this a lot in that the way the Juggernauts play, our own meta is different to the way that the rest of the country plays. And the way that England plays would be different to the way Scotland plays, would be different to the way Poland, France, Germany, Spain, Australia, America, New Zealand. Every local gaming group will have their own kind of gaming language. So that one area will not play the same things as other people. Now, a lot of people think this is a load of bullshit. People think, it's all the same everywhere, because what's good in one place is what's good everywhere else. But, I mean, although that's definitely true for bigger games, like 40k and Age of Sigmar, it's definitely not as big a thing for bolt action, because the lists are a lot more consistent across armies. However, it definitely exists. One bit of proof is look at the WTC. The sorts of lists that the Polish team were bringing were much different to the lists that a lot of the other teams were bringing. So some different areas are more similar. So England and Scotland are pretty similar, but there's still their differences. Whereas I think the way England and Australia would play, I think would be completely crazy. So if you're a rich kid getting on a plane and going to Australia, don't just think, what am I used to playing at a tournament? Think about what are they going to do? Sometimes worth just doing your research as well, having a quick nosy on Facebook pages and stuff.
One thing I will say here is I was a bit against including the meta, so to speak, into this topic, because I think for bolt action, because everything is the same, a Space Marine in 40k is different to an Orc, different to an Eldar Warrior, but in bolt action, a Japanese veteran infantryman is essentially the exact same as an American veteran infantryman, and a Soviet one, and a Chinese one. The differences are in the subtle nuances of the army selection. So, for instance, Banzai for the Japanese can make an absolutely massive difference to your army selection, and the way you should play the game. And when you think of metas, you've got to include things like, if the meta in a local area is everyone takes Japanese bamboo hordes and spear fighters, that's the meta for that area. Or if everyone takes, tries to copy Topher's 25 dice Russian spam, that could be another meta that everyone tries to take. And we saw, like he says, a whole variance of these at the WTC. We saw lots of high dice French lists, lots of low dice veteran British and American lists, and you've just got to bear everything like that in mind.
Yeah, we don't want to labour the point too much. I think, to just summarise what Dan was saying, the meta in bolt action does exist, but it tends to be more about the saturation of a particular national characteristic. So if you know that there's going to be lots more of a certain army playing, or lots more armoured as opposed to infantry platoons, the meta is much more at that level than
if anyone went to the GT, and Sheffy, you wouldn't know this, anyone that went to the GT, they will know that the current meta is British, Indian, well, not current meta, but one that's very popular, probably British Indians to start with, and then the current British meta is to spam naval observers, because they're the in thing. They're brand new, they're really powerful, and no one quite knows how to deal with them efficiently. So that's the new kind of meta in the UK at the minute.
If only snipers were better.
If only they were better.
And you'll also get things like, if you're going to travel in another country, so in the UK we find there's a lot of British lists, but I imagine in the States there's going to be a lot of US lists. In France there'll be a lot of French lists.
No, there won't be. even the French know not to bring up France.
The French take Germans, because we all know what happened there.
Otherwise known as Vichy French.
Yeah. So let's move on from meta, because it's obviously a point that doesn't want to be laboured too much. The next thing to touch on, we've already kind of touched on this already, is your play style as the person devising the list. So I'm a very aggressive bolt action player. I don't like sitting back and waiting.
You're not very aggressive, you're hyper aggressive. You're so aggressive you want to be on their board edge turn one.
Well, yeah, exactly. So I like being an aggressive bolt action player. I like forcing my play style onto the opponent. I like forcing my way of playing onto them. If anyone that listens to this is a sports fan, you'll understand when you look at sports like football or stuff like that, when you say we make the opponent play our game. That's what I do when I play bolt action, is I want them to play my game of bolt action. I want them to basically move where I tell them that they've got to move, die when I tell them they've got to die, and so on and so on.
Sometimes literally, just die! Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, if they're playing too slow, you like to do that.
Yeah, whereas on the complete, almost other end of the spectrum, I can play very defensively. I call it taking them down to the shit house and beating them at what I'm good at.
Yeah. If you don't want a game where you're going to get stuck in a metaphorical quagmire and just dragged through the mud, you don't play Pete when he's defending an objective, because you will not win that fight. You will not win that fight.
And one of the interesting things is we're all quite, in some ways, we're all quite different from each other in this respect, because we've all carried over play styles that we've learned from other games as well. Yeah. So I know that for me, having spent years playing Imperial Guard at 40k, it's not so much that I've got a defensive mindset. I'm not like Pete, but I'm very reactive. I tend to let my opponent do stuff and try and react to it, and that's actually something that works quite well in 40k. Doesn't work quite so well in bolt action. So one of the trouble I have is bolt action really does there's much more benefit to forcing your opponent to react to you than there is doing the opposite. And so I find that my natural play style at bolt action is to be reactive. I want my opponent to act so I can do something in response. But actually, you can be really punished for that. And
you'd be equally wrong, Sheffield, to try and play in a way that isn't you.
Absolutely.
That's the thing. So it's good you saying, yeah, I play in a way that bolt action doesn't favour. But equally, if you try to play like me, which is basically like getting a big bowl of jelly, pouring it on your opponent and going, yeah, look at you, as I'll just dance around you.
No,
that wouldn't work for you.
I wasn't trying to play the pity card. It's not an excuse. I'm saying that part of the learning curve for bolt action for me has been that actually to play more aggressively than my normal style would have been. And actually, it's meant that I'm a better player. Quite often what's funny is I might be the worst out of the four of us, or the one that wins the least regularly. I certainly don't place as well at tournaments. But I frequently, when I do go to tournaments, outperform the majority of people there. And that's not because I'm somehow a different player when I go to a tournament. It's just because the things that I've been learning being beaten by these three put me in a much better position when I'm playing against other people who haven't played in the same meta as me. So it's sort of you need to know what your weakness is. Like, I'd be bashing my head against the wall if I didn't realise that that's why. And I also design an army to that strength, so I don't take too many fragile units. Because if I'm trying to play a reactive game where I react to what my opponent's doing, and I've filled my list with things that die very easily and very quickly, then I'm an idiot. Because I can't play reactively when all of my stuff is dying.
Yeah.
Got to stick around a bit more.
So Dan's, hyper aggressive. I'm defensive. Sheffy's reactive. Toph is one of those. He's one of those gamers that goes, "Here's all of the options you could do. I'm going to throw my army at you, and you're going to shoot one thing, and these other four are going to kill you."
Can you tell you used to play Tyranids, by the way?
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, with your Russians, you could tell you used to play Imperial Fists, because there's a lot of big guns. You smash the shit out of two people with all your big guns for 2 turns, and then you just kind of walk forward, and if someone gets too close, you charge them with what's left.
I mean, the thing,
and that's what the Imperial Fist would do.
The thing is like, the classic example is Pete's Japanese, and Pete doesn't play his Japanese in the same way that most people do, because the way most people do it is they just bring 70-odd spear fighters and just go, ha, and run at you. Now, Pete doesn't do that. Pete actually creates like a shooting force, and then just goes, well, I'm going to shoot you, and then beat the shit out of you when you get close by. But if Pete tried to do the bamboo spear fighter rush, he wouldn't necessarily do that well, because that's just not the way he plays. It's the same way how some of the Polish guys were running 9 dice veteran lists at the WTC and beating the shit out of 16 dice regular lists. I couldn't do that. I could not play in that way. I couldn't take a 9 dice veteran list and play in the way they do, because they're obviously, that's just the way they play. They're more focused on less units, but each unit's harder. Whereas my play style is more of a kitchen sink kind of approach. So I guess it's just take
pour jelly on them.
Yeah, pour the jelly and do the dance. It's you know what you need to do, but adapt that to how you can play, and then when you're building your army, say, how is this going to fit the way I'm going to play? Because you could take the best army in the world, and we always say this, but if it doesn't suit you, you won't get anywhere with it, because there's more to a game than just a list.
Well, on that suiting you, choosing a nation to play with and choosing the right national characteristics as well can be huge. If you're a very defensive minded player, choosing Americans with the move and fire special rule might not be the best one for you, because Americans with that move and fire special rule makes them a brilliant attacking force. They can move around the board as quickly as you want them to, get to where you need them to be while spraying shots around as fast as you want. But standing still, it doesn't give you any benefit to defending having that national characteristic. Whereas having the Japanese rule of being a defender, starting hidden and then starting in ambush is fantastic. But that rule itself is... Yeah, and that rule is... But those rules themselves, like being able to start in ambush and being fanatic, isn't great for an attacking force, because... Yeah, okay, fanatic is good for not running away, but if you're having to constantly run at opponents and just keep getting shot every turn and slowly being whittled down, it's completely irrelevant, because by the time you get there, there's going to be nothing left of you to actually put up a fight. So choosing your national characteristics as well can be absolutely massive to building the right sort of list.
Yeah, and if you're a garbage player and you know you're not very good, play British.
Yeah.
Everybody else does.
Or Russian.
I think this segues quite nicely into, once you have kind of settled on a playstyle, how you want your army to play and what army you're going to use, is then work out what the opposite of that, what your weaknesses are going to be, and then know that going forward. So a classic one is Pete doesn't like flamethrowers. So if he
Fucking hate them.
because
wow.
why? Because they're the one unit that can get rid of his Japanese units. So if he builds a list and doesn't even consider how he's going to get rid of flamethrowers, then he's fallen before he's even took his first step. It's to say, if I'm bringing a 20-25 dice list and I haven't thought about how I'm going to get rid of multi-launchers, I'm falling into that exact same trap, because that will be what tears me apart. So work out what it is you're scared of and come up with a plan. It doesn't even have to be a good plan. Even if it's just an acknowledgement, even if it's just that, yes, I don't want to play that, it will suck, at least it's then in your head.
Yeah, I think I was going to say the slight exception to the rule is, like, lots of armies have a thing which is naturally sort of a counter to them. The odd one about Germany, because you have so many options and you have the biggest pool of available units, the biggest enemy or the biggest weakness of the German army is bloat. You've got so many options. You can, if you're not careful as a German player, if you buy Panzerfaust on everything, LMGs and assault rifles out of the wazoo, you can waste. Your biggest weakness is spending points in places it doesn't matter.
Biggest weakness for the Germans is gadgets.
Yeah, gadgets.
Yeah.
And nothing's cheap either. Everything's expensive.
Right. Let's move on before we give an example of a list that we'd like to kind of propose. So the last point, or the point of interest really, is models available to you. And obviously all of us on the pod, and probably all of you out there in podcast land, will have started with an army box of some sort, where it's just, here is a couple of infantry squads, here is almost one of every single weapons team. If you make it all veteran, that is 1,000 points in a box. That's where you start, and that's where you kind of get your first taste of bolt action. Now, that's fine to start with and to learn all the basic rules, but there's no harm in proxying some models somewhere. So if your mate's got a British tank that you wanted to try and use as a Panzer III or something, then that's fine. Try out different options by proxying down at your club night, and that's how you can help develop your play style to start with. And then once you've got your play style sorted in your head, that's how you can help define your list, so you can try out different units in your list and chop and change where you need to get what you think is a good list.
One thing I always see when people come with can you review my list, is they always say, here's what I've got available, and then they'll say something like, I've got 32 Waffen SS infantry. I'm like, that's great, but if you're looking at like a German army, what's really, realistically, the difference between Heer Infantry, Heer Grenadiers, Schutzensquad, Gebirgsjäger, Osttruppen, these are all different squads with different rules that, for the most part, have the exact same model. Even something like the Howling Cowl and the Nebelwerfer, basically one's just a
Very similar.
They're just, one's a multi-launcher with 2 crew, the other's a multi-launcher with 4 crew. So realistically, Bolt Action's a game where you can chop and change the same models to represent different things more than any other game I've ever played. What can represent an officer one day can represent an artillery observer or a commissar the next day. Something like a mortar spotter one day, he can be the forward air observer the next day. So don't ever feel limited into what was on the box when you brought your miniatures, because
make 30 riflemen and you're sorted.
Quite often when I'm trying to build lists, that squad's not cheap enough. Why? Because I brought it as 10 inexperienced dudes. Well, there we go. Quick change of unit type. It's now 10 shirkers. You know what I mean? So don't keep flexible when
people freak out. Yeah, people freak out about this a lot with snipers. Is always a good example of this, because people will always go, particularly Americans, they go, I can't build a sniper because none of my rifles in the box set have a scope, and you just think, so it doesn't matter. They don't need to.
Those people aren't looking hard enough, because the weapons brew has a sniper.
I'm giving an example, but basically, like you can make almost anything out of those plastic box sets.
Well, another example is, let's say you're a British player and you're bored of playing Brits. You've played them for a year now and you want to change to something else. All you have to do is, today, all of these infantry are, let's say you want to try Italians as your next army. boom, because they're all basically the same weapons profiles and stuff like that. Today, I'm going to try them out as Italians. All the infantry are WYSIWYG, so they've all got rifles and LMGs where appropriate. And this tank is the Fiat Punto, blah de blah, whatever it is. Done. There you go. You've got yourself an Italian army for a week to try out what you wanted to try out. And as long as your opponent isn't a colossal asshat, that would be fine with anyone.
I mean, even once you get to the tournament day, if you just think of, I have a plastic Sherman model, the amount of tanks you can use that is loads. Realistically, you can use it Sherman 1, Sherman 3, Sherman 5, Zippo, 105, 76 mil is a bit push, but you can chop and change it as you need. You know what I mean? Like, my model Shermans are Sherman 5s, but I've used them as everything.
Yeah. Germans are another good example of that, because they have so many weapon options on the same chassis for so many different variants. It's just a case of sticking on an extra MMG or light howitzer somewhere, isn't it?
Well, like the Panzer III, you've got the light tank light gun, you got the light tank medium gun, you got the medium tank medium gun, and it's just, the model wise, it's basically the same. Only the most ardent rivet counter would be able to spot the difference. So
actually.
So when you're saying, oh, my list needs more anti-tank, or oh, I'm really scared of this thing, I need to make sure I'm able to deal with that. Don't limit yourself with just thinking, well, Warlord sell the pack that says this on it, so I'm going to have to get that. Nah, I think there's always multiple ways to crack an egg. Yeah. Is that the right saying? More ways to crack an egg? Yeah. More ways to cook an egg? I don't know, but let's stick with that one, because, everyone out there is laughing at you. So I think that rounds it off quite nicely. Basically, know what you're playing, know how you play, and then cover your weaknesses.
Context before content.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Understand why you're playing the mission, why you're playing that game, and what type of game it is going to be, and then work from there. As an example, just a very quick example of an army list. If you're looking for an army that kind of ticks a few boxes for types of mission you want to play in, so you think about basically what grade of lieutenant do you want? Then you want 4 infantry squads. You want 2 sort of defensive minded, 2 sort of attacking minded. So a couple with LMGs to sit back and do hold the ground type work, and then a couple with a few SMGs in it to attack, maybe stick them in a truck. Then you want a sniper to pick off squads, flamethrower and a jeep, because that's the first thing you put in every single list. A mortar of some type to snipe out artillery pieces, your own artillery piece of some sort to go after either veteran infantry if you're taking something like a howitzer, or an anti-tank gun if you know your opponent likes to take tanks. And then finally, a tank of some sort to do whatever you need it to do. For instance, an MMG Stuart spam if you know your opponent likes to take Japanese bamboo spear fighters, because it's god mode against them. Or if your opponent likes to take tanks that take armor 9+ tanks that are going to try and dominate the battlefield, something like an American Lee with the 2 anti-tank guns on it is absolutely a godsend in scenarios like that. So that should be the sort of basis you're working from every sort of army list, and then you just chop and change a couple of units here and there, add an extra one, take one out, and that's how you then change it for if you're playing a campaign day or a proper tournament or just a mess around game.
And as much as possible, do not make, unless you're running a tank platoon, do not make one tank the centre of your army, because it will blow up and it will leave you short.
Yeah, if you're playing a list where you've also got to think, what if this happens? So if that tank dies, what have you then got to kill a tank? Or what have you then got to try and scare an enemy unit away from a certain area of a battlefield? If you've not got a tank yourself, do you make sure that you've got enough anti-tank options somewhere in your army to take out the tanks? So Germans take Panzerfausts, Russians take dogs, Japanese take bomb sticks, etc., etc.
Belgians take little tank destroyers.
Yeah, Belgians take pea shooters and a prayer.
The Polish just admit that they can't deal with it, but that's okay. They're just going to have to play around it. Get over it.
It's fine, because the Polish have got loads of vodka. Vodka is made from potatoes. Potato in the tailpipe. Done.
See, yeah, and there's also sometimes when you're going, oh god, how do I deal with a tank? You can take what Juggernaut Ian first put through, which was ignore the tank and play the mission.
Yeah, going down is a legitimate defense against a tank. If you take an infantry spam and the opponent's tank can only shoot 1 or maybe 2 units a turn, just go down, sorted. Anyway, that was quite a serious segment, so I think it's time to talk about tits and fanny again now. So,
ooh.
But before we go, one final point. I feel like I have to keep saying it. List isn't everything, even though we've just had a 35-minute talk about how to sort your list out.
Yeah,
Lists will only get you part of the way. You still need to understand your mission. You still need to understand how to play the game. You still need to understand how to use your units. The thing is, we always talk about mission, and you always talk about what did he bring, because that's the easiest thing to talk about. It doesn't mean that that's the only thing you need to think of going into a game. Just
because you heard bamboo spear fighters are quite good doesn't mean you should take a squad of 15 and run out in front of 10 Finnish infantry on ambush. You're going to die.
Or you shouldn't take, your large squad and run in front of a flamethrower. You're going to just waste the models.
Yeah. So even though list is a good place to look when you're trying to improve your game, it's a good place you can improve. Don't think that that's where the story ends.
Yeah.
And then I'm done. Then you can close the segment.
The end.
Oh.
Right, guys, after that, rather informative, actually. That was uncharacteristically informative, just the tip session.
Are we feeling all right?
Sorry about being so highbrow and useful, guys.
Oh, yes.
I wouldn't call it highbrow.
We needed to get Brad back, because Brad's posh English voice would have really helped that there.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Let's follow on. Let's put it into practice and do a bit of Bring Out Your Filth.
Bring out your filth.
That was very well timed, guys. Good job.
Not you. Not you, Sheffy.
Yeah, not Sheffy.
You never attempt to bring out anything.
I hit myself in the head with a plank of wood. Was that part of the skit?
So, we're going to Rebel Creek in January. This is the one that's I wasn't going to go to, and I'm still not going to. It's fine. I won't see you all there.
Oh yeah, totally not going.
Totally not going. So this is.
Except he's designed a list, asked for a ticket, been approved for a ticket, and got the time off from his missus.
Yeah, still not going.
He's still not going.
That's just because she hates him and wants to get rid of him. It's a day's bonus for her.
That is true.
I would say take that back, but you're probably on point. So
we have far too much evidence to support that.
So there.
At least he's going, Sheffy.
Hey, shh. Let me get it out.
That's right. What do you think his wife's up to while he's away?
Oh my god.
Not you.
Just the tip.
Right.
Well, actually, it's not going to be Toph, is it? So it'll probably be the shaft as well.
Oh my days. Can I carry on introducing the segment, you bunch of tossers?
No.
Nope. Okay. So we're going to Rebel Creek, which is a tournament being run by Rebel Based Gaming, which is a store in Cheshire. I think tickets are all sold out, so if you want to go, I'm sorry. We Juggers kind of went and got a load of tickets. My apologies. It's their first tournament. I think it's a little baby one. I think there's only going to be like 16 people. I don't think it's going to be like a big major or anything. So, and we can't, because they're running our pack, we got invited to go along. So, for context, I think it's a fairly competitive event in that, it's a tournament and they're running our pack, but we don't want to go and smash face, because I think it's a pretty new gaming group and the last thing they need is to all get juggernauted. So, we're obviously turning up, we're going to go and take some lists and have fun, but we're not going as hardcore as we would as, say, a GT. Would you all think that's fair?
So Toph's taking his most hardcore list he can.
Yeah, Toph's dialed it down. He's dialed it down to only 22 dice.
No.
What a noob.
Noob.
Right, so it's 1,000 points, Juggernaut Selector, so I'll go first so you can all slag me off. So I have toned it down in that I'm taking my Polish, and not my Soviets. My Polish. Can you at least give me that, guys? I can hear Chef sneering.
Tomato.
No.
Yeah.
The Poles aren't as easy to use as the Soviets.
Yeah, they both hit like trains, but the Poles, if you can get it right, they can't take it anywhere near as well as the Soviets can. No. So they've got a much bigger weakness than the Soviets.
I think if you play someone with the Soviets, it's like playing someone with a cricket bat with a nail through it. And if you play someone with and you just beat the shit out of them. And if you're playing someone with Polish, you've got one of those UV light poles you used to get at schools and stuff. You just
You mean like an actual light tube?
light tube, yeah. You just smack them over it, it just shatters.
UV light pole.
Light poles.
Fluorescent bulb.
I've enjoyed it.
Fluorescent
I
bulb
like
for the English speakers out there.
I don't fucking know. Right. I'm taking my balls. And I've got an inexperienced lieutenant on a horse. I have a marksman. I've spent 4 slot points on getting 3 armoured car slots, so I've brought 3 of my little TKS tankettes. Each one's 7+ fully armoured recce with a light autocannon. I've got...
No longer the smallest vehicle we own.
Oh, don't you fucking start. You stole that from me. I have a Vickers E-type light tank, which I've made veteran. It's got 2 machine guns, it's 7+ fully armoured, and it's vulnerable. So it's basically it's a shirker tank, which is great. And then I've spent my last slot point on getting a 6th infantry squad, and I've brought 6 6-man Lancer squads.
Wow.
It's a lot of horses.
So the only infantryman I've
You're
got is a
going to be going
single
down on
marksman.
your horse.
Yeah. So the first and most important question is, what's the officer's horse called?
Dobbin.
And will you be going down on it?
It's Mr. Ed.
Yeah. So it's pretty nasty. Is this the exact list that I played?
It's the exact
on
one.
Tuesday?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of it's one of those fun ones where actually, if you let it control the board, it's gonna catch you and it's gonna hurt you and it's gonna be painful. So you've got to hope that the board you're playing on has got enough terrain. I suppose the questions, the obvious questions to ask is what don't you want to play against?
I don't want to
and what do you really want to play against?
I don't want to fight tanks. Because the only anti-tank I've got is light autocannons. So if you bring like a KV-1 like you did, you knobhead, in our game, I just don't have an answer for it. I just cry. That's all I can do.
You can throw stones and make faces though.
Yeah. I can get really irate, but whatever.
Yeah.
So so it is a lot of cavalry, but then the easiest ways to deal with cavalry is stay in terrain, just go and ambush, or the nasty one, just go in a building and I can't get you. Also, they are only 6-man squads, so just shoot a few and the rest will fuck off, and holding objectives is going to be really difficult. So it is a nasty list, but it's not particularly tough once you start removing models. Once they start going, they go really hard. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. In terms of who I want to play, I don't know, 5 dice veteran list.
Yeah, you also want to play on a board with very few buildings. That'd be the thing. That you don't want to play small veteran lists with lots of buildings. That'd be the worst.
I want a small amount of large area terrain pieces, like maybe just 4 or 5 woods, and then I can just run around them. I don't want to have to cross terrain. I want to run around the terrain because if I go through the terrain, it's going to slow me down.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this before in relation to your Polish, because you've been working on them for a while, so they've been the subject of a lot of chat. So we won't go into it too much detail. But basically, the biggest advantage your Polish Lancer list has is the lack of familiarity with that sort of list for the majority of people playing in around the tournament circuit in the UK, because it'll surprise you. It hits like a train. 6 men hit like 20 men. They're utterly disgusting. But once you've been bitten by it once, you know how to deal with it the second time, so the surprise is kind of lost. I think you'll probably do quite well.
The thing I think is going to be the biggest surprise is bolt action's quite a slow game, but this army is not. It will all be in combat turn 2. There is nothing you can do to stop it.
Yeah, so I played it on Tuesday, just as a practice. I didn't know that I was going to play it, so I had just a generic 1,000-point Soviet list. And I had a KV-1, which is exactly the right tank, as Tove said, because he couldn't hurt it. But I also had lots of small teams. I only had a couple of biggish squads, and they were only regular or inexperienced. And there were only 2 buildings that I could get to out of my deployment zone. So I camped as one giant blob. He spent 2 or 3 turns being quite cautious, and then they all hit me and steamrolled me like a train, and I couldn't do anything about it. And it's kind of the units in the buildings were safe, but everything else was just dying to cavalry charges.
After in our post-game chat, when I was like, right, if you'd gone an ambush here, if you'd done that there,
yes.
it wasn't entirely like it was. I think Dan's right in that it's just going to be a difficult one to play if you've never played cavalry before, if you've never played a list like it before.
So I'm not trying to say it steamrolled me. There were things that I could have done differently. Like I was forgetting that when you snap, you can snap to any order. So I was forgetting, of course, that the obvious thing to have done would have been to snap some of my squads onto ambush, and that you can't recce, which is the cavalry's big advantage, away from ambush fire. So I was shooting myself in the foot by forgetting an option that I had with some of my bigger squads, and it would have kept him away from me for another turn, which possibly could have swung the game, but might not have done. The point was that actually there were a lot of obstacles in my way initially, and I didn't cope with them as well as I could have done. We didn't want to talk specifically about that game, though. The general principle is that the lack of familiarity with that list is the thing that made the issue. So now, if I were to play that again on the same board, I know I'd give it a much, much harder time. And
that's what I found from using it, and that's why it's not in the same league as my Soviets, because it only ever works once. But so I've not submitted the list yet, and I was a bit hesitant to, because I'm not sure whether the 6 Lancer squads are too much. I was thinking of dropping 2 Lancer squads and then adding 2 infantry squads, just for like objective capturing and stuff. I was also thinking if I drop 1 squad, I could add like a howitzer or something. What?
No, you need to be a fluff bunny.
But like, I don't know.
Right, I'm going to let you into a little secret here, listeners. All of you listeners in podcast land, gather around. Topher, when he said, I'm definitely not coming to this tournament, me and Pete both had a bet that he would come within 2 days, and we were right. At which point he said, do you know what, guys? Let's just be nice and play nice lists. Let's not take something we'd take to the GT or the WTC. Let's take a nice themed list, which is what we've all done, to be fair. And then after his play game yesterday, Toph said, oh, I'm not sure this list is hard enough. I'm not sure it can win enough. So he's going to drop 2 squads to take 2 fucking LMG spammy squads.
That is not what I said.
It is exactly what you said.
It's what you meant. We all know it. We all know it.
To be fair, no, the squad I just covered can't take LMGs, because I then read the FAQ. So if I was to take squads, they wouldn't have LMGs. I'd have to take them.
Fuck you.
No,
I don't think you should.
You're right.
The fun of your list is that you get to put down a cavalry charge. Like, we were joking at club when he put it on the table that it looked like he was deploying a Bretonian army.
All the riders of Rohan from Lord of the Rings.
He even, like, through habit from years of playing fantasy, ranked them up in wedge formation. So that
I guess you're right, because although the 6 Lancer squads look scarier to the uninitiated than 4 and then 2 infantry squads, it's harder for me to use 6 Lancers than it is 4, because I don't have backfield units to hold objectives with. So yeah, I know you're right.
The problem is that if you take 4 cavalry squads, then your opponent if your opponent's got, for example, 4 infantry squads, he goes, right, each one of you shoot a cavalry squad as soon as you can, kill 2 or 3 models. Okay, that cavalry squad's done. And then you've got 2 units at the back doing nothing. Whereas if you've got 6 charging down at him, you can hide 3 and keep 3 where you can kind of see them, but not quite. So you get loads of cover and stuff. And then suddenly he's got 6 units in his deployment zone to worry about. Then it's a real clusterfuck.
Well, I don't know. I don't think they've released the missions yet, but I've got a sneaking temptation they might be using some of the missions out of our pack. In which case I'm fucked, because there's a lot of objective ones in there.
Yeah, but you're okay. You're okay if you can pin the opponent down. So we played an objective mission, and you were able to keep me in my deployment zone reasonably effectively. So you ran over the objectives in turn 1 to tag them, and then hit me hard. But if you're playing in the Warlord missions where you need to stay within it, you'll have a much harder time. Well, we've had enough of you. Dan, what are you bringing?
So I'm going to bring my Belgians. They are finally complete. They are done. They're ready to rock and roll. I had a practice game with them against Pete on Monday. And yeah, so my list is quite a lot of inexperienced infantry. So I've got a inexperienced first LT with a buddy, 3 inexperienced infantry squads, all with a bar, 2 with an SMG, and then I've got the free infantry squad with a bar because I've taken 3 and I get a 4th one for free. Then I've taken 3 cavalry squads, so I've spent a slot point on that to get the 6th squad because the free squad doesn't count in our selector. 2 of them are 6 men, 1 of them is 5 horses. Then I've got anti-tank rifle, sniper, double medium mortars with spotters. I've spent 2 slot points on getting the extra mortars. just because when we went to our tournament, well, when we hosted our tournament, a lot of people used the pack to get quite a lot of artillery. So I think having some mortars is going to be a good way of countering that and getting rid of it. Then I've got the free howitzer, the free medium howitzer with a spotter, and then I bought another howitzer with a spotter, and that's my last 2 slot points. And then I've got the Carden Lloyd anti-tank destroyer thing that's a light anti-tank gun, so I'm not sure why it's
the boombox.
Not sure why it's classed as a tank destroyer. It's more like just you'd feel more threatened from an old guy with a newspaper rolled up. Honestly,
so not only have you stolen my prize of taking the smallest tank, because fuck you, you gave me shit for taking a power list, and you've got 40, 60 dudes, 20 of which are vets on cavalry, plus 2 medium howitzers, plus 2 medium mortars. Fucking throwing a lot of stones at glass houses, aren't we? Giving me shit.
Throwing stones. It's firing machine guns from glass houses.
I looked at Dan's list, and all I could think of with the 2 giant guns, the couple of small, hard-hitting veteran squads that are speedy, and just the spam of inexperienced stuff, is that Dan has just bought the Western European version of your Soviet list.
Yeah, but I said I wouldn't bring my Soviets to Rebel Creek.
My hold on. My anti-tank is a light anti-tank gun and a tank rifle.
Yeah, he's got a point.
That is it.
Hey, you've also got 2 medium howitzers.
Yeah, but they never do anything against tanks.
They will against my tankettes. I fucking hurt.
Yeah, and this is a list that I've never really a list and a play style I've never really tried before. So I've never tried the inexperienced horde before, and having 40 dudes plus 20, well, almost 20 cavalry is going to be something that's new for me. I'm never usually at the. I think in total I've got 17 dice because I've got 2 inexperienced trucks in there as well.
Welcome to the world of Toph.
Usually I hang around. I hang around the 13, 14 dice list sort of area. So it's going to be something new. And when I was actually playing Pete on Monday, it was really, really hard for me to have that many choices, but that much shit. So it's like, I get the first 5 dice. Okay, well I need Pete to move first, so I have to waste these dice on something. Okay, well I can't waste it on the howitzers or the mortars because I need him to move before I start shooting, because then I can have another chance of hitting him first next turn. I can't use the inexperienced stuff because I'll move out in front of him and then he'll just walk up and blap me with all his assault rifles. So it was really hard trying to control the order the dice came out in and wasting dice when I needed to. But who cares? We'll get there in the end.
Have you submitted it yet?
Yes.
Yeah. So you're locked in then.
Yeah. Plus, this is a case of mod. You know, when we discussed models available in the last segment, these are all the models I have available apart from an FT17 or an FT18. So it's kind of, this is the list I am taking. There is no other choice.
I think the only other thing to add about Dan's list before we go to Pete's list is that actually it just looks really good. It's kind of like Dan's taken a heck of a lot of time to do all the bases as like cobblestone, and they look really cool. And they've all got different uniform. Well, so it's kind of every squad looks slightly different from every other squad. I like them. They're weird.
All of the uniforms are different because I wanted to try and, because of the hurriedly conscripted rule, I wanted some way of trying to represent that in game, and having them all as a nice, neat army with all of the same uniforms, all of the same colours, would just be kind of boring and wouldn't really give that across. So I've got a bunch of different uniform types in there. I've got some Soviet winters, some generic Soviets, some British, some French ones in there as well. And then they're all painted a mix of green, brown and grey to show that it's kind of like, well, this is the shit we had available. Deal with it. Oh shit, we lost anyway.
I did notice that you've got a generic Western Europe army from 1940. Like, you could represent
you could
anything.
Use it as something else.
You could use it as Danish. You could use it as the Dutch. You could use it as Belgian, as you have. You could use it as French. It's just you've built a very flexible army in that you can pick what rules you want.
Until you put in some things like the Chasseurs Ardennes, it's pretty much. Whatever you want it to be. You could put some of the Chasseur units in to make it look more Belgian. I mean, I could even, if I really wanted to, get some things like the Somali fighters for the North Africa field and count it as French for a game if I really wanted to, or use it as a partisan force just to put Luke to shame and show you how you play it properly. And
are you planning on expanding your Belgians up to a slightly higher points value? Or
I
are
will
you
be
quite
doing.
happy?
Yeah, I'm quite happy for now because I've done the same as I've done for my Finnish and my Germans, is get around about 1,000 points with a couple of extras. So for my Finns, I've got a couple of extra tanks. For this one, I've got a couple of extra tanks. What I'll do next is I'll move on to my next army, whatever I want that to be. I'm not sure yet. And then what I'll do is I'll go back all over the Finns, the Germans, and the Belgians, and then I'll just add in a couple of more specific units that I like the look of. So I think I'd like some Jakari infantry for my Finns on skis, and I'd like some chasseur units for my Belgians, stuff like that.
Cool. So that just leaves the final. Have we saved the best till last? Pete, what are you bringing?
Germans.
So no, then.
I'm bringing Germans.
That's so unfair. Go on, what are you bringing, Pete?
I'm in two minds. I can either bring a list that's similar to the one I played with Dan on Monday, fairly tough, will give you a kick in if you let it, or a thought I had on earlier this week as well is I could just bring 100 guys.
Yeah, the Austrians.
We like this idea, by the way.
Like it. Yeah, we're all in favour.
Do it properly, yeah.
Yeah, so it would be a second LT, 5 units of 10 Volkssturm with an SMG and a Panzerfaust, 5 units of 10 Ostruppen with an SMG and a Panzerfaust, a motorbike, and a Panther.
Is it a
Better
regular
do
Panther?
it.
The only regular units in the army are the bike, the Panther, and the LT.
So, of all of your available slots, used up purchasing extra infantry slots to get that working.
That is 5 slot points on 5 infantry units.
But it is 100 men. How many of those
That
are
is-
green?
50 of them.
Yeah, well, it's Ostruppen are green.
Yeah.
Ostruppen aren't, they're Shirkers. The Volkssturm.
Oh yes, of course, it's Volkssturm that are green.
Yeah, but
Sorry,
isn't the Panther the only anti-tank you got?
No, I've got Panzerfaust in every squad.
Oh, sure. Cool.
And it is a Panther, so you know.
Well, yeah, you know.
You know, so as far as an anti-tank goes, right, I've got a Panther, got 10 Panzerfausts that might maybe hit one day.
Pete, why don't you just take the Panther inexperience of fuel shortage so that you've got points left over to buy like a sniper or an anti-tank rifle?
Because I've got nothing that you can kill with a sniper, so what? Well, I've got one man that you can kill with a sniper, but what's the point?
No, but you could use your sniper to kill the enemy.
He's got 100
I could
men.
just drown him in dudes. Look, I have a sniper. Here's 20 dudes. Fuck
Yeah,
off.
but you could have 102 if you took a sniper team. God, Pete.
So what did you say the Ostruppen had?
So
Shirker.
every squad has an SMG on the NCO and a Panzerfaust. The Volkssturm are green, the Ostruppen are Shirkers.
Do you
So
want
are
to
the
have their free
Ostruppen?
LNG?
Yeah, I was going to say, are the Ostruppen at 10 men?
They're all at full strength. They all
Then
have
yeah, the
LMGs.
Ostruppen get an LMG each. Yeah.
Get out.
So do the Volkssturm.
So you've got
No, you
200
can't
points of
buy
LMG for free.
Oh.
Can't buy an LMG for Volkssturm.
Oh, gay. He's got 100 points of LMG for free.
100 points of LMG.
Plus the 75 points of Panther for free.
Yeah. God, Pete, such a power gamer.
That does look fun as shit, though.
I know, I really want that.
That looks so
I
much
might
fun.
need to borrow models, lads.
Mate, I'll,
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
lend
that's
you all the
fine.
models.
Yeah. Can you please play Toph's cavalry and can they do a cavalry charge across the board at them?
I'll tell you what happened.
I can be the Orc Army.
All of me and Pete's infantry would just annihilate each other. And then the rest of the game would be the Panther playing cat and mouse with 3 tankettes who really don't want to fight it.
No, they
Yeah.
cause D2 pins, so you could pin it out of the game.
Not easily, because that means I can't wreck it away.
A shot in the rear can glance it, can't
If I
it?
get there... Jesus, I've got to go round the damn thing.
Yeah. I mean, I was toying with the idea of buying more stuff for a start, chucking the Panther down to a Kugelblitz, taking the bike out and running a captain instead.
How long have you got?
Not long enough.
A couple of weeks. What's the Kugel Blitz? Is that the quad heavy cannon?
No, it's the double heavy.
Double heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
that's
Whirlwind's
quite a
the
good
quad
option.
light.
Oh, that's it, yeah.
God, if it's quad heavies, oh.
That's the Coelian, isn't it? That's the quad heavy. Is that what it's called?
The Coolian. Is it the Coolian? I don't know.
The cool story, bro.
Yeah, I don't know.
The one that's a paper tiger, isn't it?
Pete brings one of those brooms without the bristles, just so he can move his models across the table. Just...
Yeah, Luke. If you're listening, Luke, can Pete borrow your movement trays?
Oh, I've got plenty if Pete wants them.
So, as much as I have a defensive playstyle, the playstyle when I'm pushing forward that I've started developing a bit more lately, it's very quick.
Yeah, can I just say, I love the sound of that list. I really want you to do it. It'll be silly.
I don't even know if I'd win a game.
It's because it's a list that Sheffy could never play, because he'd never get that model painted. There's many model painted ever.
Oh, would you stop with the truth already?
Oh, right in the truth. I mean, it's either that or I switch over to a list I'd like to team. That's all Volks. It's 50 Volks Grenadiers instead of 100 though.
Oh, only 50. No.
Yeah, but they get actual threat because they can all have. Well, each squad's got a minimum 5 ARs.
5 assault rifles, a Panzerfaust, and an LMG for free.
That's a scary amount of firepower.
Yeah, it is. It's funny. But just to sort of back reference something else we were talking about earlier in the pod, Pete's German army is a perfect example of. He's got so many just German grenadier models. They could be used as grenadiers, SS, Volkssturm, Ostruppen. All of these different units are represented by exactly the same models because it works. So
and they're painted beautifully by an award-winning painter.
Hey.
This is where Dan and I can go off and rage in a corner because they're not great.
Dan, you know how you've spent ages painting your Belgians in the snow, which shouldn't be in the snow, but it's okay.
Don't
we'll get over it.
Even put the idea out there.
What if my Polish win? Because they do look pretty.
I've said this to you a million times, and listener, you might think I sound bitter, and I am a little bit. But I've told Toph and everyone out there a million times, his army looks great as an idea, as a concept, and it looks great as a theme, having that many cavalry for the charge of the Light Brigade. You know, it looks fantastic. But just pick up a model and look at it in detail. Your eyes will bleed.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But it's the same for it's the same for yours. That's the bit where I get.
I think saying your eyes will bleed is quite unfair because actually the Polish are like painted better than the Germans, which were Toph's. It's kind of Toph's army looks better on a display board across the table than Dan's does, but Dan's models are painted better than Toph's. The question is, which counts more? I wouldn't be surprised if people preferred the look of Toph's army.
Well, if you pick up Dan's models and look at his eyes, they look like they're all having a stroke, so, you know.
At least Dan can paint eyes. Actually, to be clear, that's not a dig at you, Toph, that's a dig at Luke.
Right, we're going into Hobby Lobby territory, and we have at least one segment before we get to that. So shall we end the bringing of the filth?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Well, hello everyone, and it must be a special day. It must be Toph's birthday even, because for the second time tonight, after a good hour's rest, Toph is giving us the tip a second time.
Oh, yeah.
He's recovered, he's got the stamina, and as you can hear, he's already gone.
Even my wife doesn't get a double tip.
A few seconds.
We're part of the way down the shaft now, aren't we?
Yeah.
I'll just roll over and go to bed.
So
She gets a second tipping from someone else.
Oh, come on, behave. Let's. We're going to do a second just a tip about something else that's been talked about recently, which is on objectives. For some reason, for something that should be so simple in the game, actually these can be a real cause of annoyance and frustration and confusion for some people. And so we just want to look and talk through what the rule book, so the core rule book, says about objective rules, how you take them, what you need to do to hold on to them, and how that differs from mission to mission, because it does. Yeah.
Are you saying there's something else than killing all the enemy?
Well, you're playing Japanese, so you just sit on your objectives.
You need to be stood in the right place as you kill all the enemy.
I've got a more
the right
important
place is
question.
over their corpse, right?
I've got a more important question. Do you mean that there's rules in the rule book that people aren't reading? That just doesn't sound like the bolt action community.
To be fair, maybe if they were in a sensible place, then it wouldn't be so difficult to find them.
What you mean at the end of each mission where it says this is how you claim victory?
Yeah, but it should be fairly standardised across all. This is a completely different.
Right.
This is a completely different map.
Got the
This isn't about how it should be. This is what are the missions and their objectives.
I've got the rulebook in front of me. Let's do story time. So, the objective. There isn't an objective section in the book. This is specifically each mission just has the instructions of the objectives at the end, and we're covering the main rulebook. And I know a lot of tournament organisers like to set their own rules for objectives, so we're only go by what the book is saying. And specifically, we how many times have we all won a game, guys? Hands up, because the opponent didn't read the objective rules. Hands up, mine's up.
Oh god!
And literally,
Hands up,
my
easy.
last game at the WTC was exactly this.
So this is top. This is top, basically. If you're going to pay attention to any part of this podcast, listen to this bit. So, reading from the book. So this is key positions, which is the main rules for objectives.
Sorry, if you're wondering why we skipped mission 1 and 2, it's because the objectives kill people. Get with it.
Yeah, we're talking about specifically capturing objectives. So, key positions. At the end of the game, if you hold more objectives than your opponent, you win. Otherwise, the game is a draw. Loud and clear?
Pretty
Yep.
standard.
So
So
to win the game, you need to get objectives.
It can't be 1-1. It's got to be 2-1.
Yep.
But Topher, how do you hold an objective?
Well, this is a great bit, because this entire big key point to the entire game is done with a single sentence.
Wow.
To hold an objective, there must be a model from one of your infantry or artillery units, bracket, or a transport including one such unit, close bracket, within 3 inches of the objective at the end of the game. And there must be no enemy unit of any type within 3 inches of it.
So hang on. Does that mean I can deny this objective with a tank?
Yes, it
I
does.
believe it does, Daniel.
So
Oh my god.
come on, dial down the sarcasm.
It's as if any unit includes tanks.
Nice.
So, to summarise Dan's really rude, kind of spiteful impression of people, if not honest.
You deserve it, you wankers.
To catch objective, you need to have an infantry or artillery unit within 3 inches of an objective, and no enemy
What's
unit.
an infantry or artillery unit, Tove?
Anything that's not a vehicle.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Which
Infantry is basically anything from the infantry part of the book, or anything from the team weapons part of the book, things like snipers and flamers, mortars,
your
for
leader.
example. And then artillery is basically any howitzer, anti-tank gun, or AA gun
so
that has a crew.
the game only has 3 unit types: infantry,
Yes.
artillery, and vehicles. That's it.
So cavalry or infantry.
Cavalry or infantry.
Cavalry can claim the objective.
Motorbikes are infantry.
Motorbikes are infantry.
Spotters are infantry.
Infantry?
People always, I see it on the Facebook all the time. Oh, spotters can't score. Yes, they fucking can. They're
You
infantry.
know, they should not be able to.
But they can.
We agree.
I
they
know,
should
I
be
know.
able to,
They
but
can, but it's stupid.
Yeah, but the point here is, what do the rules actually say? Anything that's infantry or artillery can score an objective. That's it. The end. And any units at all can deny an objective. So an empty transport, which is closer to a friend, like a friendly unit than an enemy, can deny an objective.
Does that mean a panther term can deny an
A
objective?
panther term, an immobilised vehicle can catch an objective. Even a horse tow, if positioned correctly, can deny an objective. So, ladies and gentlemen, to catch an objective, you need to make sure by the end of the game that you have managed to secure your objective and keep your opponents off the objectives. So, 2 points are which immediately spring to mind. First one is obviously random game length. Key positions is you play till turn 6 and then roll for it, which means you might not necessarily know when the game's going to end, which means for this mission you need to make sure you're on it by turn 6 because you might not get a turn 7. And secondly, you need to make sure your opponent doesn't go within 3 inches of your objective. Now there's 2 ways you can do this. Either you can do the Pete method, which is you kill them
all.
Yep, kill them all. They can't deny an objective if they're dead. And the other option is the Toph method, which is models can't go within an inch of an enemy model. So if you just position your models in a nice 3-inch bubble around the objective, they can't get on it without breaking their own rules and coming too close to you. So
Another question that has been asked as well quite a few times is, a 10-man squad at the start of the game, if it's all but killed and there's one dude left at the end of the game, can he still claim that objective?
Yes.
Yes, he can. He is still an infantry model. Even though he's 1 man out of 10, he is still an infantry model, and can capture the objective.
As far as I'm aware, there are no...
Sergeant George here might have lost Bob, Biff and Tim, but he can still take that objective because he's Sergeant George.
There are no rules or upgrades in the game that I'm aware of that strip a unit of its unit type. There is no upgrade you can give something that will stop it being what it is. So you can't give an artillery anything that stops it being artillery, you can't give a vehicle anything that stops it being a vehicle, you can't give even infantry, even if you give them a motorbike, they're still infantry. So, here we go then. What sort of things do you want to hold objectives with?
Infantry units. Big bastard 15-man units.
Shit that's hard to get rid of.
Veteran Japanese units.
I like big shirky units. Because they're really big. Units. There's lots of people and they're cheap. So you don't have to distract the rest of your army, you can just sit on them.
I think that the thing that you need to toss up is whether or not because Pete's right in some ways, a veteran unit's great, but you probably want the veteran unit stood up and killing stuff, and something that's sat on an objective you probably want to be going down so it's harder to hit. So it's about finding the balance between, you can either have something big and cheap and rubbish that you don't mind isn't firing to just sit on it and go down, or if you want something dangerous, it's probably better to deploy that doing something else.
Well, what I like to do, and I know Toph does this as well, is if you've got an objective and you want to keep it and you want something big and scary to protect it, put your howitzers on it. But it's an artillery piece, it can claim the objective. You put the objective in your deployment zone or close to it so that you can deploy your howitzers next to it, and you stick a howitzer on it, or you stick a howitzer quite close to it and have it pointed at the objective, and then just say, come and try and take the objective. And then you have like a mortar team next to it that just stands on the objective and it's just 3 dudes, bang, your objective, and they've got to walk in front of a howitzer to come and get it.
In a similar vein, I absolutely love using little one-man squads, not bamboo spears, but suicide guys, and even your spotters, your observers. I love using those for objectives because people forget about them, and if they've forgotten about them, that's the objective is yours.
Things like dog mines, Soviet dog mines, once they've fired their dog load, then it's just 2 guys running around. Perfect for just going and jumping on
dog load.
The dog load. Things like, when you're taking like paratroopers, and there's always, because they don't run away, there's always just that 1 or 2 guys left once the rest of the squad's been annihilated. Perfect objective holders. Or deniers, just little shitty guys, just to stay alive. Because it doesn't matter the value of the unit holding the objective, it only matters that someone's holding it or denying it.
And it's not just
not going to move. Put him on an objective and have him fire from there.
Yeah, it's not just dog mines as well. As soon as, like, if you've got Americans and you've got a bazooka team, as soon as you've killed the enemy tank, you've got literally nothing left to do except shoot a medic on +6. Just find the nearest objective, run towards it, go down as a small team in cover.
So that's Dan's motto: if in doubt, war crime.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not wrong.
Yeah.
I've got a German sniper that can only commit war crimes.
I also think so at least in 4 out of the 12 missions in the Bartian rulebook, you need to score objectives to win. So this needs, because I don't know about you guys, but I come to the table with the first thought I have is how am I going to win this game? So even down to selecting which ball edge you have, you need to be thinking, where do I want objectives? Where do I not want objectives? If you're in a position where you're going to be able to defend an objective, you want it to be with lots of cover, so your guys can hide behind it as they're on the objective. If it's an objective you're going to have to attack, you don't want there to be a lot of cover, because then you're going to have to dig the other guy out of it.
Well, we mentioned in the first tip-in of the day, didn't we? When you're designing your list, this is exactly the kind of thing you need to think about. How are you going to hold an objective? How are you going to take an objective?
Yeah, Toph was saying there are four missions. Which ones are they?
Top secret.
What's mission 2?
Yeah, key positions is the one we just covered. Got top secret, demolition, and point defense.
Okay, cool.
So do we just want to?
What's different about top secret?
Let's do that bit now then. So, as I say, there's no generic rules for objectives. Each mission has its own rules written at the back. For the most part, they're all the same, but there's just a couple of key little differences that really
grind your gears.
So go on then, let's read it out.
Okay, so Victory. The side that carries the objective marker off the table before the end of the game wins. So, when you're setting up at the start of the game, you place the objective up to 12 inches to the left or right of the exact centre of the board, so along the middle line of the board. But make sure it is equidistant from each player's edge, so along the centre line. I didn't know why they put that extra sentence in, just say along the centre line. Then, the idea is you must move into contact with the objective, and then at the end of the turn, you pick that objective up. And then from the next turn on, with an infantry unit, or is it an artillery as well? So let me just read it out. So to seize the marker, an infantry unit must advance or run and end its move with one model touching the objective. From the following turn, that model can carry it off. If the model carrying the marker ends its move within 1 inch of a model belonging to a friendly unit, or indeed a friendly infantry unit ends its move so that its model's within 1 inch of a model carrying the marker, so basically you can move a squad up to the marker instead, you can hand it over. Now, this is a slight ambiguity in the rules, but we'll cover that in a minute. The handing over the objective can be done once per turn to stop a chain effect, so one unit passes it to another, which passes it to another, which walks it off the board edge turn 2. If the model carrying the marker is killed, the marker can be transferred to any model in the unit. If the entire unit is killed, the marker is left on the ground. If the unit carrying the marker is destroyed in an assault, the enemy unit that destroyed it immediately picks up the marker and it counts as theirs, and they can move the marker with their regroup move.
Oh. Can you read that last sentence again?
Yes. If the unit carrying the marker is destroyed in an assault, the enemy unit that destroyed it can immediately claim the marker, place it next to one of their models before they make their regroup move.
Okay, so I have 2 comments and a question. The comments are just a very simple one. We talked about unit types a moment ago. A unit in bolt action does not mean an infantry squad. Anything... no, let me finish. Because it does specify it has to be infantry, so that's true. We know that. It's not vehicles. But it means... Some people think that by saying a unit, it means an infantry squad of between 5 and 10 men, and thus not a support team or a HQ team. No, they're units in bolt action. So this can be one man. So long as he's infantry, he can pick it up. The question I'm going to ask is, so it doesn't specify that the unit destroying in a combat, an assault action, has to be infantry to pick it up. So if a tank assaults a unit and destroys it, does the tank pick up the objective?
No, because it says the first sentence is to seize the marker, an infantry unit must.
But then it says that if you're meeting all of the criteria of that. If you an assault action in which the unit is destroyed, it just says the unit which destroys it in an assault action picks it up. I think you could argue that
it is ambiguous.
Place it next to one of their models, plural, before they make their regroup move. You only have one vehicle in one unit.
What about an artillery piece?
Sure.
So if you held the objective and you charged an artillery piece and the artillery piece won, does then your the top secret objective, is it now held by an 88?
I say yes, because the rules say that.
No, because it's not an infantry unit. But anyway, so there's another ambiguity with this rule. So the handing off of the objective, it says if the model carrying the marker ends within 1 inch of a model belonging to a friendly unit, you can hand the marker over and the objective goes from one unit to the other. The problem with this is friendly units must or cannot approach within 1 inch of another. They have to stay an inch apart. So how do you hand it over?
You can't without breaking the rules.
Yeah. Technically, you cannot hand it over because you're not allowed to approach within an inch of another unit.
Wow,
so
top
this is
broken.
Yeah, it's almost as if it's a load of bullshit.
It is, and I think one of the things that really needs to be clarified and understood is that the interuse in the bolt action book of words like unit and squad. Because it's pretty clear, or at least once you've played the game a bit, it's pretty clear about the unit types. There's infantry, artillery, vehicle, and everything fits into one of those. But it's not clear when a unit is literally anything with a dice. So a single vehicle is a unit as much.
A unit is anything in your army.
Whereas,
an infantry squad, or in this terms, to seize it with an infantry unit, that is anything from the infantry section. So the bit that's after platoon HQs, but before team weapons.
No, you're wrong. An infantry unit is anything that has a dice and is infantry.
No, because
a flamethrower team is an infantry unit. Is an infantry unit.
You kind of got it right. An infantry unit is a unit that has a dice and is not artillery and is not...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So a HQ, a medic, is an infantry unit.
Sorry, sorry.
It's not an infantry squad, but it is an infantry unit.
I mean,
so I meant between the HQ and the team weapons, as in those inclusive of those three things. Anything after that is an artillery or a vehicle that you can't do it with.
Even a spotter is a unit.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a part of the mortar unit which has special rules where they move separately from one another.
When I was saying a moment ago as well that you could claim it with a tank, that your rebuttal to that was that you can't because it specifies plural. So that would mean that any singular infantry unit wouldn't be able to, by your own reasoning, and thus a spotter couldn't because he's by himself. He's not plural.
I mean, the first sentence: to seize the marker, an infantry unit must advance or run and end its move with one model touching the objective. There you go. As long as you have that one model that touches it.
No, because what you're arguing is the semantics at the end when it says one of their models.
That is exactly
one of their models should be. Models in that case is a unit made up of one or more models.
Yeah, but that's not what you were saying initially when I was arguing.
That's what Pete was saying, not me.
I said thank you very much.
I understand it.
Let's get it back to objectives. The rules as written are a bit of a mess. You're going to hope that any TO isn't going to really play it, but if they do, it's probably worth a chat with your opponent right at the start of the game to go, how are we actually going to play this piece of shit?
I mean, I'm playing devil's advocate here. I wouldn't ever, even in a hyper-competitive tournament, I wouldn't be such a idiot as to argue that my tank that killed a unit by assaulting it can claim the objective. It's ridiculous. I'm merely arguing that you could theoretically argue that from the rules as they're written.
Yeah, and you wouldn't be such a twat to argue that you couldn't hand it off from one unit to another because of the difference of within and not within an inch.
We think that the rules from this are the intent's clear.
So I think that the handing off should be within one of the marker, but that's up to the TO to decide because it's written the other way.
Does it specify the size of the marker?
Nope.
No. That would be too useful.
So again, it's something which I think that the intent of this is pretty clear. That the marker should be something small, approximately the base size of an infantry model. You're really taking the mick if it's bigger than that. If you're putting a CD-sized down objective, you're really taking the mick. But you should have something small, and it's pretty clear that the intent is that you can hand it off to a unit you're adjacent to. Adjacent meaning as close as you're allowed to get within the spirit of the rules, and pass it off. And that if an enemy infantry unit kills you in close combat, it retrieves it. The intent is pretty clear. It's not as clear as it should be for a set of wargaming rules, if that makes sense.
Can I just give a shout out here to the one unit that no one ever takes but would actually be useful in this mission, and
motorbikes.
that is motorbikes.
Yeah.
Is you have a unit of like 3 or 4 of them. So you know that, what was it, Sheffy? The ones where you tried to say that you could model them like a flying trapeze on the motorbike.
The entire squad on one bike.
You take 5 of them. You chain them out so that the furthest one is touching the objective and the nearest one is closer to your board edge. You drive them up like that turn 1 and you touch the objective and pick it up. And the first dice out turn 2, you drive all the way back off the board and you win.
No, first you don't even need first dice. Just recce them.
Well, yeah, you can do that too.
So I think if this particular motorbike unit had recce,
all bikes have recce. All infantry motorbikes have the recce rule. I would say so. To capture top secret, you need mobility, and you need to be the first one on the objective. But you want to be the first one there in a way that you're not just going to be immediately shot off.
You want to be on it with the last dice of your turn, so that you can immediately recce off as the reaction to the inevitable being shot.
If you run on it with your first dice, you've then got to sit there for an entire turn taking shots and fire, and you won't be able to go down. the best you can do is when you do catch the objective is make sure you chain your squad around some cover, because the moment the guy holding the objective dies, you can move the objective to any other guy in the squad, so you can make sure you give it to the guy the opponent can't see.
Just another not quite technicality, but a bit of a bullshit move that you can pull with this. If you do have a unit, say for instance Toph 6 cavalry models, and they get shot at and they recce, there is nothing in these rules here to say that at the end of a recce, if you end within an inch of another unit of yours, you can't hand it over, because it's just at the end of a move. So you can get on the objective turn 1, recce away with the cavalry and hand it off first dice out, and then fuck off with the other unit as well.
Yeah, there's nothing to say you can't hand it from a unit that's down to a unit that's down.
It's just when it finishes its move.
You can also do it from charge consolidation moves. You could even do it, and this is really technical, you could do it from the move where a tank has charged you and you've had to move the minimum distance to get out of the way.
Yeah, you could do, yeah.
But interestingly, going back to the 1 inch thing and the annoying technicality there, if Dan's right, then actually you wouldn't be able to hand it from a squad outside of a building.
You would have to argue very, very hard to not be able to pass it off.
No, of course you would, but I'm saying it's sort of...
It's just, I think was it the last GT, not this one, but the one before, we found this ambiguity and we were trying to figure out between us what we would do, and it hurt our brains quite a lot.
Yeah, we basically decided that you can't hand it off, just deal with it.
Well,
just going back to, if you're going to be there first, don't make your first dice pick up the unit, mob the objective, just have everything on there if you're going to be there first.
I was going to say, it comes back to getting the key position objectives. One way to keep your opponent off it is just use the 1 inch minimal denial range as a weapon, and just if you throw your units at him, he's got to go through them first before he can get to the one he really wants to get at.
Yeah, well, it isn't the person who gets the objective off the table quickest that wins this game. It's just the person who gets it off.
Yes.
So if it takes you till turn 6, there you go. You've won on turn 6 rather than turn 3. Done.
Well, gentlemen, it would be... Isn't it a good thing that in this lovely game of bolt action, that recce shenanigans only make a huge difference in this one particular mission? Oh no, wait a minute. There's demolition as well. Let's move on to that.
Okay.
Go on, Toph. Okay. This is your favourite.
Demolition. Objective.
Demolition is one of those missions that I look at and you can immediately see who's read the mission, who knows the mission, and who doesn't. And if they're playing one another, you can immediately, with barely any dice out the bag, say that person's going to win because they know what they're doing. It's one of those missions you need to read because it's so tight with its wording.
Okay.
My problem with Demolition is it's a good idea on paper, but the paper they've written it on is written by Warlord.
Shall we read out the mission objective
right.
from it, and then we'll discuss why it's silly.
So, the objective is to reach the enemy position and destroy it. So basically each player gets one objective, which is like a base, and they just say it should be represented by a model command post, tent, dugout, command vehicle, etc. Or similar element, building, fuel dump, radio mast, etc. So once again, really ambiguous about what the objective should be. When we play it, we just tend to use like a 3-inch objective we would normally use for key positions, but that's not actually in the rulebook. It can be anything.
Coastal defence bunker.
Yeah,
done.
So you roll off the highest scorer picks a side table, and places his base in his setup zone up to 20 inches away from the table middle line, which means you have to set it up at least 4 inches from your own table edge. Both sides must destroy the enemy base. A base is destroyed if at the end of any turn, any enemy unit is touching the base. Empty transports cannot be used to destroy a base, although a transport vehicle carrying troops can. That's it. That's all it says for destroying an objective.
So here's the critical thing about this. It doesn't matter how many friendly troops you have near it. If they can touch it with one enemy troop, gone. And so the thing that Pete was saying right at the beginning is, you know that somebody hasn't read the rules when they deploy the demolition objective anywhere but the exact centre of their deployment zone.
So, the first noob error is people think, oh, I'll put it on a flank, and then I only have to cover 2 sides, not 3. But remember, outflanking is allowed in this mission, and if you put it on the flank, your opponent's just going to outflank his entire army on that flank and just grab your objective. Another thing is, this is a game where it really needs bubble wrap. You need to put layers and layers of units over your own objective to protect it, because all it takes is one little man who can be a spotter, because he's a unit. A spotter is a unit. A spotter can just touch the objective and, oh wait, you've just lost the entire game. So if you let even the slightest little bit of room for someone to just walk around your base and touch it, they're going to win the game automatically. So,
and you also need to be a bit of a prick with this mission, not to your opponent, but you need a prickly defense, because if a vehicle touches it, it destroys the base. So if you've got a nice big, panther, and just bundle it at the enemy objective and get their turn 3, 4, touching it, and they can't kill you, you win.
And remember, you can't normally go within an inch of an enemy unit, except a tank can when it charges them, and then the unit's got to move out of the way. So the easiest way to win this is get your big fat tank, point it at the enemy objective, run onto it, and then go, get rid of me. And one final point I missed out is victory. If at the end of any turn, one player has destroyed his opponent's base while his own still stands, then that player is the winner. Which means that you can win this on turn 2, which I have done before. You don't have to wait to the end of the table, which means if you leave the slightest gap, you've already lost. There's no way you can't recover. You can't go, oh shit, I messed up turn 3, I've got 3 more turns to try and fix it. No, you need to book up your idea, son, and not make a single mistake.
There is one army that can win this turn 1.
That's what I was going to say. I think if you have the right conditions and you have a road conveniently placed, you can win it.
Need a road.
Yeah, you don't need a road.
There's one army that can
Partisans,
win it turn 1.
right?
Partisan cavalry, off you go.
They ignore terrain on the first turn, so they can just run 18 inches.
No, scratch that. They don't forward deploy, do they?
No, but you do deploy normally, and you can put the objective anywhere in your half. So as long as your opponent, if your opponent's put it a bit too far forward and has been a moron, you can.
No, it must be 20 inches from the middle line.
No, at least.
At least.
Yeah, so it's only 4 inches into your deployment zone.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
No, it's up to 20 away.
You could do it. I want you to imagine.
If you do it closer.
I want you to imagine where there's a road straight down the middle of the board, not from left to right, but from your deployment zone to your opponent's. And because you don't roll on in this one, do you? It's one where you deploy your army down. And you deploy a recce bike, one of the German recce bikes that can recce at its maximum.
Oh, the BMW one.
On the road. Shoot it in the first turn.
48 inches.
48 inches. You're sat on the objective. Done. Bang. Turn 1.
Well, one thing to point out for this one as well is where it states what these bases should be represented by. So it's a command model, so a dugout, a command vehicle, or a fuel dump, or a radio mast. If you're not a moron, you will choose one of those options. If you are a moron, you will choose a building, because a building is a big fucker, and it takes a lot more to defend. So do not ever choose a building as your command post.
If you do
have
a
not
choice,
do it.
You want the smaller one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want the smallest thing, like a standard base size. Like
a 40. We use about 40 to 60 mil bases with a few oil drums on them, and that's our objective.
It's Joe, the standard large base you get with like MMG teams and mortars and things. That's the biggest you want as an objective, and that seems to fit. I think that we've been doing enough times. Most people who have their own custom-made objectives, the biggest I've ever seen are people who've used those. Some people use the smaller 40 mil ones, and I think it's just a throw over from people who've played 40k and things. You've got in your mind the standard size of an objective. Yeah. And so you make it that size. But yeah, Warlord don't specify. There's nothing to say that they shouldn't be the size of CDs.
And there's been events where we've gone to them. I'm still playing because I'm not playing a moron. I'm playing a quite intelligent person. And then both Toph and Dan have wandered over to me turn 4 going, have you not won yet? And it's like, oh, great.
I mean, this is just, it's one of those, Demolition is one of those games which is really easy to lose if you're not paying attention.
I'll say, I lost it in turn 2 the first time I played Demolition against Toph because I put my thing in the corner and put units in front of it and not behind it. And Toph recce biked onto it because I'd put it in terrain. So he was able to recce into such a way that he was outside, on the other side of terrain that I couldn't see, thus an entirely legitimate recce, even though he went 24 inches towards me. And so you can definitely get caught out. It's a silly mission.
I think, as with Top Secret, as with key positions, you want to use cover to your advantage, and you want to use area denial to your advantage in these situations.
And one way to stop the inevitable tank charge coming down for your objective is put it into area terrain, because the tank cannot do a run move, which means it cannot charge through that area terrain as long as it's rough ground.
Also, tanks need to move at least 9 inches to get that run off. So if you just place a unit too close to it, it can't get the run up required to charge you.
Just run a dogmine team in the way. They might have fired the dogs, just run them in the way.
Yeah, and don't put the objective at the end of an unblocked road, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
You don't want a Sherman going 36 inches the first turn and then at 18 the next and shooting you off it and standing next to it.
So we've got point defence is the last one, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's very similar to key positions, isn't it, in terms of the objectives?
Ooh,
Yeah.
Ish.
So, with this one, you've got an attacker and defender setup, and the defender places 3 objectives along his board edge, which must be at least 6 inches from the table edge, but you want it to be as far away from the enemy as possible, so why wouldn't you just put it on the dot 6 inches from your board edge? And they must be 2 foot from each other, which generally means you have 1 in the middle and 1 on each flank. To score these, if the attacker holds 2 or 3 objectives at the end of the game, the attacker wins. If the attacker holds 1 objective, the game is a draw, and if the attacker holds no objectives, then the defender wins. All objectives are held by the defender at the start of the game, regardless of where his troops are positioned. If an objective changes hands during the game, then it remains under the control of the side that's taken it back. So that bit means that once you've caught it, you can move off it and it's still yours, which is a big change from the other objectives missions so far. And once again, to capture an objective, there must be a model from one of your infantry or artillery units, bracket, or a transport, including one such unit, close bracket, within 3 inches of the objective at the end of the turn, and there must be no enemy unit of any type within 3 inches. Once you capture an objective, you hold it until the enemy captures it back. So that's basically exactly the same as in key positions, except it stays yours even if you walk away from it.
That's the biggest change in this one, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're identical in every way, except once you've touched it at the end of the turn and it's yours, you can fuck off.
So,
And that's quite a huge change as well, because it stops armies that, if you've got quite an aggressive force that likes to move and shoot and try and destroy the enemy, it means you can do that. You attack one flank, get that objective, and then just keep rolling across, and you don't have to worry about that objective becoming an issue anymore.
So to clarify and bring this all together at the end with closing comments, objectives in bolt action are different depending on which mission you play. They're not standardized, so you need to make sure it's very clear, or you're very clear in your mind exactly what you need to do to win, because there's nothing worse than thinking you've got an objective when you haven't, and there's nothing more satisfying than your opponent thinking he's got your objective when he hasn't. So it's always good to know, and just hopefully it should be clear. Quite often TOs set their own rules for objectives. Even at Warlord's own GT, they comped key positions, didn't they? Or was it point defense?
Point defense.
It's point defense.
Point defense and top secret.
So they specified that you have to choose one of the positions in point defense and go for that. So each TO will change it, but in the standard rules, there, as what we've gone through there, it's different for each mission.
And yes, we've left out hold until relieved, because it's basically King of the Hill as one objective, go in the middle. And by going in the middle, you're going to kill the enemy army anyway.
Yeah, and once again, it's within infantry or artillery within 3 inches of the objective, and there must be no enemy units of any type within 3 inches of it. So once again, this comes down to understanding what an infantry unit is, what an artillery unit is, and overall, what any unit is.
If you want to be an arsehole, go and park your Tiger on it, you won't lose.
Yep. If you have a big enough unit and they can't get within an inch of it and they can't kill you, then it's yours.
Yeah. A big enough unit and small enough objective. This is a really good advantage of playing in 1/48 scale. If you take the smallest objective you could legitimately get away with, which is the standard base size of an infantryman in bolt action, which is 25mm base, I think. 25mm base is the smallest. If you put anything bigger than, I think, a Panzer IV on that, then you cannot get within 3 inches of it without getting within an inch of the vehicle, which you're not allowed to do. So if you've got a big enough and a fat enough tank, even some of the later war Shermans, you could sit it on an objective and deny your opponent any chance of getting on it.
And this comes back to a lot of works in all of these missions is area denial, because if the opponent can't get there to deny it, then you can hold it with the tiniest, shittiest little unit. So even just having your tank die in the correct place can stop the opponent, because it stays there as impassable terrain. So if you was a moron and you did put your big demolition objective on the end of a road that directly leads from their deployment zone to yours because you're just stupid, you can correct that mistake by parking a tank on that road and then watching it die, and then go, well, at least I've now got an impassable terrain roadblock.
That is the best thing about my little haggos. Parking away, I'm there to deal with me.
Yeah, Pete's Japanese tanks are more useful when they're dead.
I've always, from every war game I've played with tanks, I find more use and getting a lot of use out of a dead tank than I do out of a live one.
It's perfect what to do with trucks when you've dropped off your load as well. Once you've dropped off that squad, you can go back on objective and just sit there. And then you're providing cover to the unit that's on the objective, and then if they kill the truck, you just die and give even more cover.
Yeah, just using trucks to act as, say if you've got like a 10-man squad, obviously it's not going to have the area of coverage that a 15-man squad is. But you know what? A dead truck takes up the space of 6, 7, 8 guys? Definitely, if it's done in the right place. Put that on the front edge of that objective, suddenly you need to create a nice little U shape on the back, which if you've got enough models, you can now double layer. So if they kill the first layer of 5 or 6 dudes, you've got 5 or 6 more underneath that are still within 3 inches of the objective, but far enough away that the enemy can't go within 3.
Can I just say, if you are listening to this, podcast number 15, and you've not actually played that much bolt action, or you've never played it before, and yet you're listening to this, it says all you need to know about the rules for bolt action, that we've done 2 just the tips today. The one on list building, a fundamental and incredibly huge and varied section of the game. We spent less time talking about that than we have talking about the objective rules of 4 missions. Everything you need to know.
In which case, to quickly flip it round, so this podcast isn't 15 years long. How would you take an objective? So what's flamethrowers, mortars, generally things that ignore cover.
Yeah, stuff that will dig units out really quickly, and if you've not got a lot of it, then spam's your other option. The amount of times I've played Toast Russian list and I can hide from all the howitzers, and then he jumps on you with 30, 40 dudes, and you're there like, shit, I've got to move, but if I move the howitzer shoots me, what's going on?
I think speed and punch.
This is more for point defense, key positions than top secret or demolition. Pick your fights as well. If there's 5 objectives across the table, you don't need to get all 5 to win. You only need to get 3. And if you can deny all of your opponent's objectives, you only need 1. So holding 1 well and then denying the rest is a legitimate strategy if that's all you're good for. And that's happening with things like tank platoons where you don't actually have that much infantry. Your infantry you need to hold, fair enough, but your tanks, they can deny. They can't catch it, but they can stop your opponent doing it.
The amount of tournament games I've won of 5 objective key positions, I've won one position to 0 because I've just put a dude on each of them and gone, you can't have those, is insane.
Yeah, another good tip that's useful, particularly for point defense, is there's nothing that says you have to deploy your entire army down immediately. You can have a wave of reserves in that. So just keep as much of your army off the board as possible. Wait until your opponent commits to where he's going, or which way he's going, and then just bring your stuff on. It was made even easier to do that thanks to the GT's ruling that says you have to pick 1 and go for it. But in the general rule, it's still a valid tactic. Don't commit everything to defending objectives that your opponent can ignore.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I've said it on this pod before, and I'll say it again. For the first 2 turns, just kill shit. These games are 6 turns for a reason. You've got 2 turns to kill as much as you possibly can, then you start worrying about the objectives. Because a lot of people that you play, they will think, oh, I need to get a unit on each of these objectives straight away, and they start running and running and running for the first 2 turns. Well, just walk up, shoot them. Now there's half an army left. Then you pick, like Toph says, then you pick your fights, say, I want to kill that squad and that squad to make sure those 2 objectives are mine. And then if I've got time afterwards, just try and mop up the rest of them, or I'll just put a dude on each one, like Pete said. Done.
And if you are going to be the guy that's going to decide you want to be there first, don't stop at the objective. Go beyond, straight into the opposing army, because if you can fight them off, you only need to hold 1.
Yeah.
And if your opponent is wasting 150-point 10-man veteran squads on holding an objective, good on you, mate. Don't bother trying to fight it. Just make sure you deny it with a stupid horse toe at the end, and then concentrate on what you can do.
Yeah.
Anything else? I think we've that was almost a rag session, to be honest.
Well, it was a targeted rag.
Just play sectors over and over again.
Just
Best mission in the book.
Learn objectives, and then don't whinge when you get caught out. The end.
Play the Juggernaut pack missions. Those missions are quite
solid.
well written.
Yeah. Do we clarify objective size?
Possibly.
I'm just
think
thinking
so.
that given
think
that
so.
I've complained about Warlord not, it would be a little bit
Well,
hypocritical
if it
we
doesn't
hadn't.
now, it will do by the time we release the next version. There you go. Right. Shall we do some hobby blobby after our double penetration?
Yeah. Right then, everyone. Sheffy's here to introduce the Hobby Lobby. Oi. Vote Conservatives, up with the church.
He sounded like a villain from a CBBC TV show.
Putting aside the fact that you're clearly just doing a random background character from the League of Gentlemen, I would never encourage anyone.
I think you need to be more English and be like, "Hello, I am Sheffield. I'm here to tell you how wrong you all are. And don't ever try and take pictures of boxers. I will get very upset and God will punish you."
All right,
Indeed.
okay.
You know how you start
Hold
with
on,
English?
hold on.
You start with English, going pip pip tally ho.
No, wait. Okay. Let me do Sheffield again. Just give me 2 seconds to get into character. Ready?
All right, go on.
Hobby blobby.
Okay. Sorry, guys, I flaked. Boom! That's how you do it.
Right in the ego.
If I had a mic, I would drop it.
What's that you hear?
Nothing.
Right, that's the mic drop.
Can you tell the listeners that we ran out of stupid accents for the Hobby Blobby? Welcome to Mr.
No,
Blobby's
what
Hobby
actually
Lobby.
happened? What actually happened is Toph didn't want to do Jamaican.
No, he was meant to do Northern. We had a little dad date the other day, and he was meant to do a Northern accent. Like, e-bag gum, I was going right up north for a bye. And when he did it, when we were on our dad date, he went, e-bag gum, yeah, man.
I'm having a brain fart today. My apologies. It's because I've been off.
Just the brain.
My boss at work is painfully northern, and I've not seen him in 2 weeks. So it's leaked out of my system. So give me another. Wait till next episode. I'll try and do it with my northern accent. But because now people are going to be wanting it, and it's going to be awful.
Nah, it won't be awful, mate. It'll be terrible, and it will still be good.
That's what they want, though. They want a terrible accent.
That's true.
All you've got to do for Northern is just, you ever hit the play button on your podcast on your iPhone and it's gone to like half speed? That's all you do for Northern, is you've just got to sound real slow and talk real quiet.
Welcome to Mr. Blobby's Hobby Lobby.
Close enough.
Or you aim for the you could always aim for like the episode 15 in the Juggernaut podcast. I'm going to make a note. I was trying to do the Big Brother
What you
guy.
wanted to do is episode 15 in the Big Brother house.
It's hard, isn't it? See, now
very hard.
everyone wants to go Jamaican.
You can,
Because we
do a
all love the
Geordie
good
accent.
weather, man.
I'm sure you could do Geordie, Toph. Come on. Just go, why are you, man, like, and it's Ant and Deck all the way from the jungle here.
Day 94 in the Big Brother house. No, I can't do it.
That wasn't too bad.
Day 15 in the Big Brother house. Sheffield is nowhere to be seen. He's flaked from the fucking cameras.
You're going South African at the end there.
They found him in the chicken coop.
Episode 15 of Mr. Blobby's Hobby Lobby.
Oh,
They've lost their minds.
right.
Are you doing Scottish?
I was going to say,
No,
going up near the borders there.
I can go too far north, or I can switch right over to Ireland if you want. I mean,
I was about to say I didn't know Alistair Omnicron was on this episode.
Omicron.
Omicron, yeah.
The Transformer himself.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, we diverged a little there, listener. Sorry about
A
that.
little.
I'll be well impressed if all of that stays in.
You're damn right it will. I hit my pledge this month.
Congratulations.
I constructed some lancers. There you go. Done.
And they're even base coated, listeners, as well. He's actually sprayed them.
Those bad boys. Yep.
So they're only about 10 seconds away from being painted, aren't they?
And about 30 seconds away from another painting award, mate.
Blinking, you'll miss it.
That's Toph's motto.
And that's the title of his sex tape.
Zing.
Did you guys do any hobby blobby this month?
I did.
yeah.
By this month, you mean today, right?
Did you leave it all to the last minute, Pete?
As he always does.
Tut.
As is tradition with Pete.
As is tradition, I left it to the last minute and then painted the whole fucking lot.
Did you just dip it?
No.
So you need to be clear for our listeners who don't remember in perfect detail what we pledged last month. What have you done today?
What? Go back and listen to episode 14, the whole thing. What are you doing?
Yeah, lazy bastards.
I pledged 30 bamboo spear fighters. Yes, I've gone there. And a German tank. Big Bertha's now got a layer of paint on her.
One layer of paint. He sprayed her in grey undercoat and that's it.
As painted as many of mine.
Hey.
I also completed my pledge. So I pledged to finish
Bullshit.
painting my Tiger 2 and a Puma, and I did both.
That's quite a slowdown from what you did the month before, but we'll let you off because everyone was ill in your house.
I mean,
He's got to paint a Puma.
I'm pretty sure Sheffield died, and this is just the satanic ritual that has brought back the doppelganger of Sheffield. Because he actually turned up to this
'cause that
episode,
one
which
was
is very
fake too.
uncharacteristic. So
Can't be
It's like invasion of the body snatchers for 1 month.
I've been watching The Witcher. I need to get a silver dagger out.
Toss a coin to your witcher, oh valley of plenty, oh valley of plenty. Oh man, that is a great show. What an amazing
I don't know
diversion.
if that comes across on the pod, but in my headphones then it went kind of staticky, you know, like when it kind of goes. So it was like a real dance remix for me.
If you haven't
Were you
gone
waiting
and
for the drop? Oh!
if you haven't gone and watched The Witcher yet, go and watch it just for all of the Geralt memes that have come out of it, which are frankly amazing. Have you seen the one where it's
Binge
just
it all. Henry Cavill is great as Geralt.
it's just the ones where he just looks off into the distance and just goes, "Fuck," and it's brilliant. It's just you can use it in so many places. Warlord released a new
It's the
FAQ.
quintessential.
Fuck.
It's a quintessential. Stop. The gamers stop. Think.
Yeah.
Fuck. I must.
Come
mess that
up against Dan at a table at a tournament. Fuck.
Would you play a Witcher miniatures game?
Yes.
Like a skirmish one with it's like a couple of
it was like
humans
Gore
against
Chosen.
monsters.
If it was like Gore Chosen, I would.
Yeah,
just
if it was
a,
like Gore
a
Chosen,
15-minute fuck around thing, yeah.
That could be fun.
So who haven't we heard from? Dan,
Dan,
what did
yeah.
you
Me.
create?
So
Yeah.
Dan, did you buy paint?
I did buy paint, mate. Yes,
Good lad,
it's
you-
not
well
for my
done.
Belgians though. It's for my Iron Hills Dwarf set.
Well, you only specified buying paint, so you know.
Yeah, I bought some paint.
Is procuring
And,
supplies a hobby pledge?
Well, it is because
Well-
without it, I couldn't do the next hobby pledge I'm about to do.
Well, it's not a very good one, but he did honour what he said he was going
I
to do.
pledge to make sure I eat food and breathe oxygen so that I'm ready
Well,
to paint,
I also
paint
said-
models next time.
Hang on, Dan. Did you
Yeah.
add snow?
I did add snow
There
to the
we go,
Belgians.
there we go.
I finished the
Did you
Belgians
find
and
out-
I submitted the list for Rebel Creek as well.
I pledge to go to work to earn money so that I may fund my habit. There you go. I pledge to drive to club so that I may play this game.
So, honestly, what are you actually pledging to do?
Oh, I'm gonna paint the models. I
I
need.
pledge to make sure Sheffy turns up to nothing because he flakes.
No, I'm going to. I've got some Belgians to. Oh fucking hell! I've got some
You've got some
Belgians.
Belgians.
The
I've
only
got-
Belgian Pope knows is the masses of chocolates he's stuffed in his fat face over the last week or so.
Gillian chocolates. I've got to paint Polish. So I've got 12 Polish cavalry to paint for Rebel Creek, and I have a tank to paint for Rebel Creek. And if I get time, I've got 20 Polish infantry guys to paint because it would be nice to be able to dismount from my horse if required.
And then once you've finished that pledge, what are you going to do with the remaining 23 hours and 57 minutes of the day?
Touch your missus. I'll only need 5 minutes there. It'll still beat your record, mate.
I think you.
5 minutes. Look at you bragging.
I definitely think that Toph your pledge should be the 2 cavalry squads and the 20 infantry, because we know how quickly you can paint those cavalry. I think you should do the infantry as well.
Mate, I'm painting.
No, he's painting for Rebel Creek.
Yeah,
Rebel
I'm
Creek
painting a
is
whole
halfway
fucking
through the
cavalry
month.
unit. That's more than like your 2 tanks last month, you cheeky git.
Silence.
Ooh.
It is what I'm not complaining about that, but you have lower expectations of me.
No, because I'm doing it for Rebel Creek. I'll get the cavalry and the tanks on bare minimum, because if I don't manage to get the infantry done, well, that's my own punishment, because I won't be able to dismount at the tournament. So I feel like I'll get as many done as I can fit in, because it's in my interest to get them done.
Yeah.
Nice.
Pete?
So Sheffy, what are you not painting this month?
I've been quite good at meeting my hobby pledges. So I'm going to pledge 2 things. The first is that it's interesting that we've been talking about objectives, because I've made some bolt action specific themed objectives. I've made a HQ unit for demolition and 5 objectives that I've done as little themey scenes.
Oh.
And I want to finish those. So that'll be the first one, to do some interesting objectives. And then I want to finish the final 2 units for my 1,000 points for Gaz's event, and then I've nearly done all of that. So the first it's a Howling Cow rocket launcher, so I've got a multi-launcher to paint. It's only a small thing though, so I figure I should paint a squad as well. And I've got another squad of Volks Grenadiers that I'll try and paint those. So that's 10 Volks Grenadiers, a Howling Cow multiple launcher, and 6 objectives. Because one of which is the demolition objective. I think that should be alright.
Yeah, so my pledge this month is going to be a Sheffy special. I'm going to paint 1 Dodge truck for the WTC coming up. And
Oh, is that
then...
going to have a machine gun?
You what?
Is that going to have a machine gun attached to it?
Yeah, I think so. Just to stop all the whinging.
It's to shoot down your own planes.
Yeah. Like, I'm not stupid enough to take a fucking air observer. And then the second part of my pledge is just going to be to read through the various army books and try and decide on an army that I want to start collecting. But I'm on a bit of a bolt action break at the minute after painting the Belgians.
Well, to be fair, you did paint quite a large army in quite a short
Yeah, I mean,
time.
I've got loads of little bits. Like, I've got a box of Africa Corps with a Flak 88 that needs building and painting. I've got some Fallschirmjäger that need assembling and painting. So I've got little bits and bobs that I'll probably do over the next couple of months. But at the minute, I want to paint my Iron Hill Dwarves, get my next Blood Bowl team going, because we've got a tournament coming up soon as well. So
Look at you pushing the boat, eh?
And hey, I might end up actually bloody painting some 40k again this month.
Shit.
Well,
next month.
Well, you know, but we're going to do that 5th edition league, because we don't like playing current 40k, so we're going to go back in time to 2008 and play 5th edition, which should be fun for a hobby outing.
I decided the other day for that I was gonna. I didn't want to repaint any of my stuff. I got it all out, and I was looking at it, going, it's good enough that I don't want to repaint all the models, but I do want to redo all the bases. So I'm going to redo for the bases for 140 infantry.
What do you mean repaint when you've not painted it? Base coats don't count.
No, my Imperial Guard are painted to me.
Yeah. And before we stray too far off bolt action, my pledge is going to be a little rubbishy, because screw you guys. I'm going to paint 1 German motorbike.
Really pushing the boat out there, mate.
I know.
That's as far
The
as
smallest of all the German models.
That's as far as bolt action is concerned, anyway.
Oh, fair enough. Sounds like we've all got a lot to be getting on with.
I've got this pile of unbuilt or unpainted plastic, and it needs to become painted plastic or sold.
I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm a bit bolt action burnout at the minute after the GT, and before I start again for the WTC and the tournament scene coming up over the next few months. I just wanted to take a break.
Are you coming to Gaz's event?
We were planning on having a holiday early doors, but because of certain things that have happened to the Mrs. Uterus.
Wow, does she really need that big a surgery? Jesus.
Yeah. No,
I swear I
Not
wasn't
supposed to
involved.
go into shoulders.
we know you weren't involved. Fucking hell. I didn't see any petri dishes lying around.
Dan, when I said shoulder deep, I didn't literally mean shoulder deep.
I know. So we were planning to get away, but we think that the areas we want to go, there's a lot of Zika, and for a pregnant person, it's not the best idea to go to an area that with a disease that makes your kid's brain dead. So it's probably going to be on hold now. So I might come to Gaz's event.
Well, a couple of years of being parented by you would have a similar effect.
Well, I wanted to try and give them the 2 years without it first.
Well,
Yeah.
either way, we've got a big run up till the WTC in April.
Yeah.
Even if you do come to Gaz's event, it's not like you need to practice for that one because it's just a nice campaign day. So
Yeah, well, the Gaz's one, I'll probably just take my German Fallschirmjäger force and
So
be done with it.
it's a good time to have a chill out break. Hence us doing a small 40k campaign. Don't worry though,
Yeah.
Juggernaut Bot Action podcast will carry on. We still got shit to say.
Oh, but don't worry. As soon as I decide,
Bolt action in his.
yeah, as soon as I decide over the next couple of weeks that I want to do Japanese, I'll be painting 400 bamboo beer fighters in a month. So you know.
I think he's turning Japanese. I think he wants.
And I think so.
Yeah.
You have no proof of that.
You have
That is dishonourable.
Why don't I just do that
I've
for
been
the
watching a lot of Man in the High Castle over the past few days, and that was very odd.
Right. Any final thoughts before we all make like a tree and leave? Go buy tickets for our finest hour. I'll hunt you down if you don't. Go buy tickets.
Yeah, remember, you don't need to bring a buddy. You can come alone and we will pair you up on the day.
And if you bring a buddy, you won't be playing with him on the day, most likely.
Yeah, unless you specifically request a grudge match.
Don't plan a list with your buddy thinking you're going to be with them because lol, then you won't. Yeah.
I think we should try and put more pictures of our stuff and maybe some pictures of some of our games up on the Facebook Bolt Action podcast thing. I feel like we haven't necessarily produced that much content for it.
Yeah.
It's been
Next week I'll try and get a picture of all my Belgian stuff up on the pod. Well, a few pictures of all the
We've been
infantry.
quiet over Christmas. We've been busy.
Yeah.
Some more than others. You know, it happens.
See, what actually happened over Christmas, listeners, is these three realised that they were parents and actually had to give a shit about their children instead of play Bolt Action. And I sat and monged out and watched a lot of TV.
No,
Hey, I was all up for going to club on Christmas Eve, but some fucker decided the church was closed.
Apparently churches close at Christmas Eve. It's Jesus' birthday the next day. Don't you need to get, like, the party started?
I mean, I rediscovered the Halo Master Chief Collection on my computer and rediscovered Griffball. So that's where my time's been going.
What the hell is Griffball?
What?
Is that Blood Bowl for
What?
cheapskates?
The best sport ever.
Right.
Is it Blood Bowl for cheapskates?
Listeners, please go and message Dan about Griffball. And if you don't know what Griffball is, go and play some Halo and re-educate yourselves. P.S. Go and buy that game, Dan. Right. I'm going. See you later, guys.
Okay, it's a game in.
Alright, let's all shuffle out of Topher's bedroom, because this is getting a little awkward now.
Burn, baby, burn. Australian Inferno. Burn, baby, burn.
Yeah, maybe not appropriate.
Bye.
To all our friends in Australia, stay safe.
Sorry, what part of our pod is appropriate, Pete?
The part where we say goodbye. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.